Pardon me? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good evening. It's Monday, sorry, September 16th, 2024. This is a regular meeting of the Weston Board of Education. We have a quorum. I'd just like to make just a couple of announcements before we have a Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to recognize Bernadette Kingsley in a little bit, who is a former Board of Education member. Bernadette is a very experienced educator, has taken on a very large role at the schools in the city of Bridgeport. And Bernie was and is just a terrific individual and just a great member of our board. We are lucky that we've replaced an educator with another educator who is not here. Who we will talk about a little bit later. So why don't we, apologies, there's something here. Different Lisa, I thought I sorry. Apologies, a little confusion here. It happens when you get older. Maybe the next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag is over here.
Flag's over here.
I moved this way.
Oh,
now
you changed
back
it
this
on
way.
us,
Oh,
okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now I can talk to her, not behind her back. So walking in the room right now is the newest member of the Weston Board of Education, Lisa Luft. And as I was saying before I mixed up my Lisas, Lisa has a long career in public education, 32 years in the New York City school system, where she started as a teacher. She was a principal. She was an administrator. She's a 30-year resident of Weston. Her two children went through the Weston school system. She holds any number of licenses, including a Connecticut superintendent's license. So as much as we've lost an educator on the board with Bernie, we've gained an educator. And Lisa, welcome. The other Lisa, please. That's you.
I have to get back in the groove of turning on my microphone. So thank you, Mr. Aziz. As Mr. Aziz began, we would like to start the meeting by recognizing Bernadette Kingsley, who has resigned from the Board of Education after serving for 3 years. And in those 3 years, Bernie really brought a lot to our board and certainly served our district children well. Full disclosure, Bernie is an employee of the Bridgeport Public Schools, and last week I was with Dr. Levi David, and I shared with her, yes, we're losing one of our board members because she got a big promotion. And I said, it was you. And she goes, yes, I know who she was. She was the new person at the table with her cabinet. And I said, yes, that's Bernie. And do you realize how lucky you are to have her in that role? So, and, I mean that, and I know I speak for the, not only the entire board, but the staff members who you impacted with your positive thinking, your creative thinking, and what you brought to the table, not only in the Board of Ed meeting, but the Subcommittee for Curriculum. And I would ask Dr. Henkel, could you please expand on that a little bit, because I know that you worked intimately with Ms. Kingsley.
I would be honored.
Dr. Kingsley, I just want to say, first off, you were the first member of the board that I've ever worked with when I started my role in Weston. You and I spent countless hours together planning agendas, collaborating on different topics that were going to be meaningful and relevant to our work. You supported all of our curriculum and instruction leaders, our principals, and always advocated for the highest level of teaching and learning that we could offer in Weston, which I'm so proud of the work that we've done over the last couple of years together on our curriculum committee. We've talked and gotten very close as moms. We have kids of the same age and the same grade, so we've bounced ideas back and forth with each other, and I know we've had some long car rides home after board meetings too, just talking about different topics, and I really always valued our time together. So I just want to also say that while we may be losing you on the board, I'm honored that we're gaining you as a colleague in the field of education now that you are a supervisor of secondary science. And so I'm happy to continue working with you, but just in a different capacity. So congratulations.
We have a gift for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, on behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to give you this gift. Here, why don't you get on that side? Okay, you ready? All right, post it on the Insta, Jody.
Got it. Perfect. Congratulations.
You're a phone call away. Mr. Aziz, before we continue with the meeting, I also would like to introduce our new Director of Human Resources, Julie Cavoni. This is her first meeting for the 24-25 school year. It's wonderful to be able to have you right here at the table with us. So welcome.
And just while we're on announcements, just there'll be a couple of changes on some of the committees with Dr. Kingsley leaving. She was the chair of the curriculum committee, and David Felton will be taking on that role. Lisa Luft will be joining the committee, and Lisa, although I forgot to ask you this, you'll be the representative to CABE. Thank you for accepting that. Yeah. Item number 4 is an approval of the minutes from June 17th, 2024. Are there any changes or comments on those minutes?
No.
If not, can I have a motion to approve?
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the June 17th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I second.
Things never change.
I know.
Okay.
It's
All
our
those in
rule.
favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I would assume, Lisa, one abstention. Thanks. 4B is approval of the minutes from June 25th, 2024.
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the June 25th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? One. Thank you. Item number 5 is Student Board of Education representative comments. Thank you for coming. You might be good if you introduce yourself to everybody because we're going to see you on a monthly basis.
Hi, everyone. We'd just like to start by saying thank you for having us. My name is Jaya Sharma, and I'm one of this year's Student Government Co-Executive Presidents. And this is Emily Krieger, the other Student Government Co-Executive President. We're here today to report on some of the things that have been going on in the high school recently. As you all know, today marks the beginning of the 4th week of school for Weston schools, and we're happy to report that we've had a great start to school so far. We ended the first week of school with our annual Trojan Kickoff Pep Rally, which was a success. There we did our Unity Lap as well as the Weston W picture, and also noticed an upkick in some of the students' school spirit, which has been great. In other news, fall sports have begun and are ongoing. We've also noticed bigger student sections at most all sports, but notably at the football game. We just had our first football game last Friday, and we saw a great turnout from both students and parents. And we also had a great turnout from the pep band, which was the largest in memory. The Weston High School was also just recently gifted blue light glasses, so we'd like to thank the donor, Mr. Leary, for those. They were a big hit with the students. And as for student government, each individual grade government is starting to fundraise for big events and also work on their individual fundraising events.
On that note, I want to go on to talk about some of the upcoming things that you guys can expect in the next couple weeks. So our senior class is planning a field trip to Jordan's It Furniture Adventure Park for some grade bonding on the October 16th PSAT day for the other grades. From September 30th to October 4th, we're going to be having our Spirit Week, which leads into homecoming that Friday. So on September 30th, after school that Monday, we're going to be having a sort of school-wide event after school hours we're going to get like pizza trucks, spike ball, cornhole, just a lot of fun games that people in the school can just come and hang out and get together. We're hoping for a good turnout with this. And then that Friday, October 4th, would be our homecoming. We've had a good success. It's only our 4th or 3rd year doing it. So we don't really know what to expect, but we've had a lot of really good turnouts in the past couple years. And then for our homecoming game, we are going to be doing, for that Friday, for the October 4th, we have our annual Powerpuff game, which happens during the school day. And we do a themed float by each grade where they have cars come on the track. This year it's going to be something different because of the new track. But we do a theme for each grade, so we chose cities as our theme this year. So freshmen chose New York City, sophomores chose Miami, juniors chose Nashville, and seniors chose Vegas. So these themes are also going to be for our Deck the Doors event, which is with all of our advisory classes, where they decorate the doors according to the theme. That was a thing that we did last year that people really liked. And then for the dance, our homecoming dance is going to be on October 5th at the high school, and tickets are $20 and should be on sale soon. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions? Well, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you every month.
Thank you for having us.
So item number 6 is public comment. We read a preamble to welcoming the public to speak. The board welcomes the opportunity to hear from members of the public about matters concerning Weston Public Schools. Public comment is an important chance for the board to receive input and feedback from our school community. We listen attentively to all comments shared. While we value and pay close attention to public comment, it is our practice not to respond substantively or sometimes at all during public comment. There are several reasons for this. First, engaging in a discussion on non-agenda items could violate the board's obligations to comply with the Freedom of Information Act. Second, the board or the administration may not be prepared to discuss certain matters raised in the first instance by a public comment. Third, the board develops its meetings agenda carefully to ensure that the board addresses matters that are pressing or relevant at the time of the meeting. We encourage members of the public with specific questions, concerns, or complaints about our schools to reach out directly to Superintendent Barbario. You may also email the board at our email address, boardoфeducation@westonps.org. Additional details on public comment at our board meetings can be found on our website, as well as meeting conduct and the bylaws of the board. With that, I invite any members of the public to come up and speak. And Jody, would you just read the rules of the road?
During public comment, can you please state your name, your street address, and you will have 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Ruiz Andrews. I'm at 14 Saugatuck River Road. I'm the parent of a 5th grade daughter and a son in 2nd grade. Please bear with me because speaking in any kind of a public forum is very difficult for me. Thank you all for welcoming our comments. I want to thank the board for all of the work you do, specifically your attention to school security. I can appreciate how challenging it is to address this issue, and I believe that you share parents' concerns, and I appreciate that. But we need more than your concern. We need your actions and your continued vigilance. I was part of a group of parents who approached you in 2022 after the Covenant shooting in Nashville. That tragedy revealed that reinforced glass saved lives, and you subsequently implemented it in Weston. Thank you again for that. It's devastating that we now find ourselves in the wake of yet another school shooting, looking at another tragic case study. It's become clear that 2 enhanced security measures saved lives in Georgia: automatically locking doors and lanyard panic buttons worn by teachers. Teachers and law enforcement both report that the loss of life would have been much worse if these measures were not in place. A history teacher said quite simply that the shooter was unable to enter his classroom because the door was locked. And the panic buttons around teachers' necks led to a rapid response in under 2 minutes. In Weston, we currently do not have automatically locking doors or teacher-worn panic buttons. We are not as prepared or as safe as we could be. My daughter tells me that in her 3 years at WIS, her classroom doors have never been locked. My son said sometimes at Hurlbut. So we currently have an imperfect system that leaves us vulnerable. Panic buttons on laptops, on phones, or in hallways pale in comparison to a lanyard around a teacher's neck that can be pressed immediately in an emergency or a moment of pure panic. I strongly urge you to implement both measures as soon as possible for the safety of our kids, teachers, and staff. Nothing else we do in this district matters if they're not safe. And we're here as parents to support you however we possibly can. Thank you.
I'm Catherine Vidola. I live at 17 Coley Drive, and I have a 5th grader, Miles, and a 2nd grader, Theo. To build on Michelle's comments, first, Lisa, I want to thank you so much for sending your email today about school safety. I know how important school safety is to this administration, to you personally, and I and my family appreciate all of the work that you do to keep our children safe. As we know, on September 4th, less than 2 weeks ago, there was a school shooting at Appalachia High School in Winder, Georgia, that resulted in the murder of 2 children and 2 teachers. This was the 45th school shooting of this year. You hearing me okay? Yeah. In the aftermath of this horrific tragedy, it emerged that 2 safety features implemented at this Georgia school prevented this event from being even more catastrophic. As Michelle mentioned, the first is automatically locking classroom doors. The classroom doors all lock automatically. Therefore, if a student leaves the classroom, they need to knock and be let back in. The teacher doesn't shut and physically lock the door. It's done automatically, kind of like many of our own front doors at home. The gunman in Georgia left his classroom and then tried to get back in, but the door was locked. A student approached the door to let him in, but saw that he had a gun and didn't let him in. As he had an automatic weapon, had he been able to enter the classroom, it would have been much worse, but he couldn't get into any of the classrooms because they were all locked. The 4 deaths that occurred were in the hallways. None were in the classrooms. This feature saved lives. The second safety feature that they had in Georgia, as Michelle mentioned, is a wearable panic button worn on the body like a lanyard that a staff member pressed, which immediately contacted the police. This was introduced 1 week earlier, and a teacher pressed the button to alert the police. Imagine trying to locate a panic button when you're in the middle of an active shooting. Instead of going to a certain part of the classroom, fumbling with their phone, or getting on the computer, which could be across the room, the panic button in this case was on their body. Or what if you've been shot? Or if you're being held hostage in the room? My mother is 84, and she wears a lanyard with a button around her neck that she presses if she falls and needs help. She fell in her kitchen recently, and she couldn't get up, she couldn't crawl to the phone, she wasn't able to access her iPad, but she was able to immediately press the button and get help. In emergencies or when we're in trouble, we can't always access help like this, so having it on our bodies makes the most sense. Personally, I am not an expert in school security, but lockable doors and wearable panic buttons are common sense, and I would like to see these implemented in our schools as soon as possible. There were 82 school shootings, in 2023, and taking into account that the schools are closed for the summer, this is close to 2 shootings a week. This can't wait. We expect to see more school shootings by the end of this year. This is very, very timely and very urgent. We can leave nothing to human error. We can't ask or rely on our teachers to lock or unlock the doors. They need to be done automatically. Imagine if they forgot and there was a school shooting. It's unacceptably unfair to the staff to put the responsibility on them. The panic button, specifically on their person, is a no-brainer. In a school shooting, everyone's doing everything that they can to survive. A teacher is hustling their kids and soothing them, not going into a line of fire to find a panic button on the other side of the room. Can you imagine that in a time of stress, trying to locate a button on a phone or a computer or a wall? I hate to be crass, and I'm especially glad that the 2 young women have left the room, but in spraying bullets, it's just simply not happening. And when we're talking about school shootings, it's about chaos and spraying bullets. We need to make this as easy as possible to be safe. In terms of execution and practicality, I have 3 friends that are teachers who teach at Trumbull, Newtown, and Bethany. They all want panic buttons on their person. Bethany is a new school built with new doors. In Trumbull, which is a very old school, they just replaced all of the door handles to have this automatic locking feature added, so doing this is absolutely possible. I know that you care about our kids deeply. The most important thing to any of us is to keep them alive. I can't imagine that there could be possibly an argument against either of these 2 measures, so I'm begging you to implement them in our Weston schools as soon as humanly possible. Because this is so urgent, I would like to request information on implementation in the next 2 weeks. This is not something that can or should wait. Thank you very much.
Other comments from the public? Just let me say, first of all, thank you. We take these comments seriously. Much of what we do in terms of school safety, we do behind the scenes, as we should. Clearly, this topics that you both brought up is something that we've discussed amongst ourselves, and later in our meeting, we'll have a conversation about school safety. But I just want to let you know these comments are not, or have not fallen on deaf ears by any means at all. And thank you for bringing them up. Anyone else want to comment? Great, thank you. The next item is new business. The first item is to authorize the superintendent to appoint an impartial hearing officer for the purpose of expulsion and residency issues for the 2024-2025 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Aziz. This is an annual, if you will, appointment that you, vote on. And I think it's pretty clear. There are times where a decision has to be made, serious decisions, about for the purposes of student expulsion and residency. And I think it was maybe about, 7 or 8 years ago, we moved in this direction so that that it's impartially reviewed by a hearing officer. We have someone that we generally contact, but these hearing officers do exist in the state, and they for these purposes, go to districts and hear both sides and then make a recommendation. So I think that it's important. It takes the burden off of you, quite frankly, to have to do that, because we're a small community. It can involve your friends and neighbors. And having this kind of impartiality by the hearing officer, I think, is best for everyone involved, the district, the family in particular, and the board. So I would encourage you to appoint.
And just so everyone knows, we had a discussion this afternoon with the school's general counsel, Jessica Richmond-Smith, from the Shipman Law Firm, and this was one of the topics. And we went through all the procedures that one needs to take as a Board of Education and as an administration, and this was the recommendation that we appoint this impartial hearing officer. Are there any questions or comments from the board? If not, can I have a motion to authorize the superintendent to appoint an impartial hearing officer for the purpose of expulsion and residency issues for the 2024-2025 school year?
Move that the Weston Board of Education authorize the superintendent to appoint an impartial hearing officer for the purpose of expulsion and residency issues for the 24-25 school year.
Is there a second? Second. Oh, my gosh.
A second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Item number 7B is donations, recognition, acceptance, or approval. Or approval or and approval. Anyway, item 7BA is the approval of a donation of a True Fitness CS900 treadmill to the Weston High School with a value of approximately $6,000.
Yes, this request came in from Principal Canetta regarding the generous donation of a member of our community who is donating a particular piece of equipment for is it the weight room? Is that correct, Megan? I think for the weight room. So we would, because of the cost, we would like you to approve this donation of this.
Is this being donated anonymously?
No, it's being donated by Dan Aarons. He's in the, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great.
Oh, yeah. He contacted the athletic director, and, we're very happy to take advantage of his kind donation. So if you could approve it, please.
Sure. May I have a motion to approve the donation of a True Fitness CS900 treadmill to the Weston High School with a value of approximately $6,000?
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve donation of a True Fitness CS900 treadmill to WHS with a value of approximately $6,000.
Second?
A second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Next item is approval of a donation of 1,000 Look Optic blue light glasses for students at Weston High School and Weston Middle School with a value of approximately $88,000.
This is from another community member and parent at Weston High School, and it's my understanding there was an overproduction of his stock, and so he wanted to share that with the students who, I believe that it was very popular, wasn't it, Ms. Canetta? Because I saw a sign in the main office that said, "No more," with a sad face. Yeah. So they're the blue light glasses are for when you're on the screen. So I don't frankly even know if any of them made it over to the middle school, because I think our high schoolers jumped on so many of them. Is that accurate? I think so. Yeah, they were beautiful, real high quality, in a box. Full disclosure, I have a pair. Well, staff was encouraged too. I thought, I'm going to take a pair. Dr. Henkel, you took a pair too. We were over there eating lunch and they had a pair. So if you could kindly approve that as well. We have distributed them all, so I guess it's a technicality. Sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah. So can I have a motion to approve the donation of 1,000 Look Optic blue light glasses for students at the Weston High School and Weston Middle School with a value of approximately $88,000?
Hold on, I'm having a hard time seeing my screen. Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the donation of 1,000 Look Optic blue light glasses for students at WHS and WMS with a value of approximately $88,000.
Is there a second?
Second. Yep.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 7B, C, acknowledgement of a $500 donation from the Herbert Elementary School PTO to be used for the Max Stossel Social Awakening presentation for parents. You might want to talk about that.
Sure, yeah, yes, and I actually referenced that presentation in the letter that just went out. So this is the Hurlbut piece, but it should be noted that all 4 PTOs are so supportive and behind this and are going to be making a donation to help us cover the cost of Max Stossel. Mr. Stossel has done presentations in this area as well as across the country and also abroad in Europe, correct? When we talked to them, they were in Germany, I think, right? And it's a wonderful opportunity to have a presentation not only for our secondary students, but for all the parents in the community that evening to come. And his particular focus is on concerns and issues related to social media and technologies, which I know is certainly of interest to all. So I would encourage you all to attend, more to follow, but to thank not only the Hurlbut PTO, I think they were the first to get the paperwork in. Thank you, Hurlbut. They are always living their motto, be prepared, but there will be more donations in the future from the other 3 PTOs. So you don't really have to approve it, you just have to acknowledge it.
It's acknowledged. 7C is a discussion and approval of consent agenda.
Yes, I'd like to turn this over to our new Director of Human Resources, Ms. Julie Ann Gavoni.
Good evening, everyone. As you can see from tonight's consent agenda, it's been a very busy season in HR. I am not going to go through every person who's on the consent agenda, but I do want to highlight a few items for you. Since July 1st, when I assumed my current role, we have filled nearly 40 vacancies for the Weston Public Schools, including the addition of 15 teachers and 3 new administrators. I would like to specifically highlight for you the addition of 5 new music educators who come to us with a wealth of experience, 2 strings teachers, a band teacher, and a general music teacher, who have begun the year in such a warm and wonderful way. In addition, I want to highlight the dynamic new administrative team at the high school, joining Principal Canetta and Mr. Mark Berkowitz, Athletic Director. We welcome Mr. Nick Torres, Dr. Penny Proskinatopoulos, and Mr. Matthew Hartigan joining that high school team. And finally, just a moment to note, there are 5 names listed here who have submitted their resignation to the board, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank those people for their service to the Weston Public Schools, to this community, and to our students.
Questions for Julie?
I just had a quick question. Are we fully staffed, or are we 1 or 2 people short?
We are very nearly fully staffed. We are 1 or 2 people short, but we are working very hard on that, and we will have an update, I believe, very shortly.
Excellent, thank you.
Can we have an approval of the consent agenda? All those in favor?
Move that the Weston Board of Education.
Go ahead, David, sorry.
Move that the Weston Board of Education accept the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? There we go. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is culminating goals for the 23-24 school year presentation.
Yes, as we did last year, some of the scores, the results, are embargoed until August, and so specifically the SBA, for example. So I'm going to be turning this over now to Assistant Superintendent Dr. Tina Henkel, who will take us through this piece. It's sort of our final piece in kind of closing the chapter on 23-24. And please note that in October, we will be doing the formal presentation of our district improvement plan for 24-25. Dr. Henkel.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, everyone. As Superintendent Barbiero mentioned, this is part 2 of 2, and our final component of our district improvement plan and our update regarding our goals from the last school year. As Dan gets that going, I believe you also have the presentation in front of you as well. The second slide reviews the few goals that we identified last year within our district improvement plan that, as she mentioned, are directly aligned to the state summative assessments that are not publicly released and embargoed until August. Side note, since we did not have our curriculum subcommittee meeting last week, you may have noticed in the principal's updates this Friday, we will be mailing home all of the individual student reports for Smarter Balanced for ELA and mathematics, as well as the Next Generation Science assessment for grades 5, 8, and 11. So you should look out for those if you have a child in any of those grades. So we will begin looking at some of the highlights and specifically around the area of mathematics, which starts on slide 3 in the bottom corner there, I believe. And I think they're still working on getting that up.
Do we have hard copies for people who are here?
We do not, I do not believe, but they are digital. If anyone wants to log in to the agenda, I believe the slides are available online as well. Moment to warm up, maybe?
Yeah, it's cooking on now.
Oh, there it is.
Very slowly.
Visible. We're a little punchy since we've been here for a little while. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is a review of the goals that are outlined within our district improvement plan that we were not able to report out on at the end of the school year. While I did note the SAT performance here, we actually discussed it during our June culminating presentation, but I'll review it again this evening. So as I mentioned, we're going to start with math. As a district, we do look at goals across all grade levels that complete the assessment. So in grades 3 through 8, we look to see our achievement levels, which is a level 3 or 4, based on the Smarter Balanced assessment. So in the spring, 78% of our students met a benchmark of 3 or 4. And while our target was an increase of 3% from the previous year, we fell a little short with that target, but we did improve from last school year, which is something that is very something that we can celebrate. In 11th grade, we recognize that this is an area that we want to focus on moving into this school year. So we did have achievement from last year, which was at 71% on SAT, and in mathematics specifically, it's a hard data point to unpack. We look at some of the assessment data from PSATs in former years to make some predictions and unpack some of that relative to curriculum and instruction. But one piece of information that I found quite interesting as well from this data point is as you start looking at the cohort from previous years back in their achievement, the last time that this specific grade level took a state standardized assessment was in their 6th grade year because of COVID. So when they were 6th graders, that was the last time they were required to take a Smarter Balanced assessment. At that time, their achievement was 47%. And so if I track that cohort over from 6th grade up to 11th grade, they did have an improvement of over 15%. So while that number we want to work on and improve overall for the next group of students and focus on curriculum and instruction, we did see marked improvement from the last time they took a state assessment.
Can I also make another comment? Because
Sure.
I agree with you. I have a child who's in that class, and it has been a class I've been tracking for a long time. That cohort has had a struggle in math. But the other thing, too, that doesn't seem to be mentioned here is that the SAT was given in a digital format for the very first time as well, which I think may have an effect on this, too. Not trying to make excuses by any
Right,
stretch of
of course.
imagination, but I do know as a parent who had a child who was taking SATs this year that it was a new format, so.
Absolutely. There's a lot of variables as well. So while, again, we don't want to place blame in certain areas, but we want to learn from it and we want to make adjustments and make sure that, like, to your point, we have opportunities to expose students to different formats and make sure that they understand how to navigate and use the tools on some of these digital platforms as well. But I did start to unpack some of this data a little bit as much as I could, trying to anticipate some of the analysis components that we all are interested in as well. So some of the areas that I dug into a little bit, and these are not related to the goals, but obviously these are questions that we all have. I know I had them. So I wanted to really unpack individual grade levels and look at some areas of celebration and also some areas of focus. Because ultimately, as Lisa mentioned, we take this information, we wrap it around some of our NWA assessments, some of our qualitative components that we focus on around curriculum and instruction, and that helps us make predictions as we develop our district improvement plan for the next school year. So grade 5, as you can see, is one of our highest in the DIRG, which is ultimately the highest in the state. I put an asterisk next to grade 6 because last year's achievement in grade 6 was below 60%, and they have improved by 14 percentage points this school year. And if you recall, when we talked about some of our action steps last year around 6th grade specifically, we grounded that work around curriculum redesign and realignment to the standards. We also it was the first year that we adopted the illustrative math core curriculum resource, and our curriculum and instruction leader really focused on instructional strategies and supporting teachers unpack the individual units aligned to that curriculum. And so we zoomed in a lot on grade 6, and we saw some significant improvement. So that was a huge success for our teachers this year. As a district, our transition grades still are areas that we want to focus on, obviously grades 3 and grade 6, and also in grade 9. I know we don't have a state assessment in grade 9, but Algebra 1 is a foundational year and a foundational skills for all upper level mathematics, which transcends into grade 11. So we really are looking this year at this summer, specifically in our Summer Curriculum Academy, we revised our grade 7, our grade 8, and our grade 9, which is Algebra 1 typically, curriculum. So we hope to see some really marked improvements along the way in those middle grades. I also unpacked some of the individual claims aligned to grade 11 and Smarter Balanced, and some of the specific areas that we want to embed around curriculum and also the learning experiences for students is practicing problem solving and modeling, because we noted that these are some areas that our students are struggling in and can have some significant improvement, which would impact the overall achievement. I think that's good on math. Nope. Just one additional piece that we wanted to celebrate. We also wanted to drill down into our special education subgroup. We do look at growth over time, and this is specific to Smarter Balanced math achievement and their achievement growth or their target achievement that the Smarter Balanced provides to individual students. Again, while this is not directly aligned to a goal that we outlined, this is something that we analyze internally and want to see how our subgroups of students are doing. And as you can see, this was an area of celebration. Last year, we had 59.7 of our students with disabilities that met their achievement targets that the Smarter Balance identified for them. from one year to the next year, so from spring, let's say, of third grade to spring of fourth grade. And this year, we had 66.2% of our students meet their achievement targets, which is fantastic. Okay, now we're going to transition into English language arts. So again, we can see across the district, we have maintained an overall average achievement across all grades in 3 through 8 at 80%. We were at 80% achievement last year, and while our target was 83% this year, we maintained our achievement level at 80%. Same is true for our SAT achievement. We had 91% of the students meeting the benchmark goal for 11th graders, and we were 1% improved from this school year. So again, it is we are maintaining our achievement in that area. Again, I like to drill down a little bit further into the individual grade levels a little bit further, and so we did notice again that at our exit grades, those are the ones in ELA that are actually our strongest. So 5th graders and then 8th graders. Grade 5 is the second highest in the DIRG, and grade 11, obviously, you can see is also highest in the state. One of the highest in the state, right next to Wilton there. Our students are stronger in the areas on Smarter Balanced within the assessing, reading, writing, and inquiry areas. And as I drill down a little bit more specifically into the claims, one area that we want to focus on and expose students to within the literacy area is really in the speaking and listening skills, which is really connected to comprehension. Specifically, listening skills for a range of purposes and audiences. And this is where they actually have to listen to audio and then respond to various comprehension questions and analysis of the specific stimuli that they're actually reading out loud to the students. And they have to analyze purpose of meeting, auditory structure, oral language features, knowledge demands, and be able to do that at appropriate complexity levels. So this is an area that our new curriculum and instruction leader are going to be focusing on specifically in the middle grades, because we know that this is in middle school specifically, grades 6 and grade 7 are areas that we want to focus on this school year. As we drill down a little bit more into our subgroup achievement levels for Smarter Balanced, again, we have the ability to look at our subgroup and determine the percentage of achievement that they met their growth targets based on the Smarter Balanced assessment. And again, another area to celebrate is our students with disabilities grew in this area. They were at 51.5% of the students that met their achievement targets based on the Smarter Balanced. And we're at 58.6 this year. Sorry. Okay, and the last content area that we focus on is specifically in science. Science is even a little more tricky because we only administer the Next Generation Science Assessment in grades 5, 8, and 11. Those of us that have advocated over the years, we have asked the state to add at least one more grade level in science to help us look at growth over time, such as grades 3, and grade 6. They will not be developing a science assessment in those grades because they don't have the funds for it. So we do our own analysis with our own tools. And so we looked at the average percentage of achievement for students in grades 5, 8, and 11, just overall percentage. We had 84% of our students achieve the level 3 or level 4 benchmark. Again, while we didn't meet our target, we're slightly off 2 percentage points. We did improve overall within those 3 grades from last year at 83%. So again, I drilled down a little bit more in these 3 grades, specifically within our DIRG and at each grade level. And you may notice again that 5th grade this past year was one of the highest across all of the different area districts. And 5th grade was just a strong cohort. If you have noticed, 5th grade was strong in ELA, it was strong in math, and it was strong in science as well. And overall, our high school performance is up 7% from last year. And while our middle school performance saw a slight dip from last year, we took a little bit, we did look at our cohort and growth from 5th grade to 8th grade, and they did improve 5 percentage points from when they took the assessment back in 5th grade. This year, we are going to continue using Inner Orbit. I mentioned last school year, you know, one of our aspects of our formative assessments was that in science, we didn't have a consistent tool that we were using in science to help measure progress over time based on the standards, not like we did with NWA, for example, or DIBELS for literacy and math. This year, we are going to be expanding the use of that tool with Inner Orbit. It's going to help us make more common assessments. It's going to help us make some stronger predictions within each grade level, and it will also help us redefine some of the units and the experiences for students prior to the state assessment. Because as you mentioned, Chad, just like in any assessment that's digital, the science assessment is a very difficult assessment because you have to navigate between the reading and the writing and also a lot of the visual aspects and the ways that the computer interacts with the different visuals, like a lab experience. So for some students, that's also how Inner Orbit can help them because they're exposed to an assessment that looks very similar to an NGSS-like assessment that the state provides. So what does all this mean? We take all of these data points over the year. Also in the summer, we work during our summer retreat as an administrative team. We unpack a lot of the different aspects of what we have done over the school year, what has worked. We gather feedback from our staff and our curriculum instruction leaders as well, and we take all of this into consideration as we think about what we want to focus for the upcoming school year. So some of the pieces that we wanted to highlight for you today, but you know, we'll formalize it more specifically as we present the full district improvement plan in October. We want to highlight that we are in year 2 of the adoption of American Reading Company with the early literacy grades. This is year 1 for grades 3 through 5. So that is a huge transition as we look at aligning the standards for literacy, which ultimately will be one of the first years that we actually see some of the fruits of our labor when it comes to all the work around curriculum redesign and curriculum adoption. This is the first year that we have adopted, or we're moving towards a new core resource for mathematics, and we will be moving towards the same core resource in grades 1 through high school, but this is the first year that we're now adopting grade 2, grade 5, and we'll have grade 6 all the way up to Algebra 1 using the same core resource. So in previous years when I first started, we had some sporadic resources across the district, and we're really looking to refine that articulation from grades K all the way up to high school. We have worked this past school year focusing on some of our interventions as well across literacy and math. So when we do recognize that there are students that are below grade level, well below grade level, we have evidence-based tools to help intervene, and we work through our interventionists at the earliest grades, right, kindergarten all the way through 8th grade to support some of that work. And I know that our high school is also working on building more specific tools to help support literacy and mathematics at the high school level as well. And then finally, down at the bottom, you know, we are not, we know that there's really specific targeted areas that we want to focus on this school year. ELA specifically in middle school, as we look at revising our curriculum, we've seen how some of the growth over time for students in grades 5, 6, and 7, we're not seeing the amount of growth that we want to see over time in ELA, and so we're really revising this curriculum, focusing more on this school year as well as over the summer. It's one of the couple grade levels that we really need to think differently about. How do we find the time to really dive into the curriculum and revise it? Because over the summer, we rely on our teachers and sometimes they're not available. So this year, our curriculum and instruction leader is going to be working collaboratively, more specifically with those grade levels, to really realign those units, integrate nonfiction, really focus on more experiences that relate to listening comprehension. And we're using a lot of our tools like Newsella to help us with that work. And then, as I mentioned, specifically in grade 7 through 9, or 7, 8, and then Algebra 1, when I say ninth grade, by the time they get to ninth grade, it does span out into specific courses. But this year, this is the first year that we wrote curriculum over the summer. We did have teachers come in and revise our 7th, 8th, and Algebra 1 curriculum, and this is the first year of implementation. So we hope to see a lot of our fruits of labor coming out of that curriculum academy when it comes to realignment to the standards, and to see some of that great growth that we saw in 6th grade, that 6th grade transition from one year to the next. So that concludes the conversation for this evening and the last couple goals that we were not able to report on in June. And as I mentioned, we will be working, or we've started the work already around what this year's goals and action steps will look like relative to these focus areas.
Hey, Tina, thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
that. To that point, and in advance of October's meeting, walk me through how you guys think about performance targeting. Is it, and how you arrive at those numbers? Is it as simple as, and I'm assuming it's not, but is it as simple as, okay, last year was 81%, this year we want to see an improvement, right? 82, 83, et cetera. Are you adjusting for cohorts? Are you adjusting for the implementation of new curricula? Are you providing us, is there base targeting, or are there stretch targets? So help me sort of understand how you think through that process.
Yeah, great question. Those are questions we ask ourselves as well when we're making those decisions. Typically, 3 to 5% is statistically significant, where we're looking at goals that can be aggressive yet achievable, right? And you saw that in some of those goals, while we were looking for a 3% increase, we may have fell short by 1 percentage point. We do look at historical data. We look at trend data over time. That way, when we are making decisions on one grade level to the next, whether or not we're over assessing or over identifying a target that we don't believe we can actually achieve. So we do look at cohorts as well. Like I mentioned, we know that when we look at the 3 years trends of 5th grade, 6th grade to 7th grade over time with ELA, that's an area when they get to 7th grade that we're not seeing as much growth that we would like to. Same thing when they go from 5th grade, 6th grade, and 7th grade. When they get to 7th grade, that's an area that we'd like to focus on this school year. It is difficult because the state really doesn't, we create our own internal analysis around that, and so sometimes there are a lot of variables that go along with it. Typically, we review the cohorts, we review trend data, and then we look at year-to-year growth from last year's achievement to this year's achievement.
If I can add, where also we see that kind of drilling down is, so we have the district improvement plan, and we kind of have clusters of grades 3 to 5, 6 to 8. But when the principals do their work, they look very specifically at the grade levels. They will look at that particular cohort, like Patty will look at the 4th grade cohort based on their 3rd grade performance and work with the SILs. And so at the school improvement plan level, that's where you will see when those targets are set. Some grades may be a little bit more even over the district target that encompasses 3 grades for that very reason. So they do really drill down and look at, who are the kids, how many kids are behind each percentage point, how did they perform, and what realistically can we have them perform in the future. I know Laura Cadis is always very proud, especially at Hurlbut, where it's like, look what the 2nd graders did from 1st grade, and she'll push she'll send a higher target, if you will, because she knows what that cohort can achieve. So I would encourage the board that it's not only the district improvement plan, but underneath those plans posted on the website are the school ones where they go a little bit deeper into each grade level.
Yeah, so ultimately it's multifactorial, and basically you're taking into a bunch of things into account. Does that mean that from year to year it would not be unheard of to see a target number come down from one year to the next if you were, again, adjusting for curriculum or adjusting for a cohort?
Yeah, absolutely. You saw it this evening. And one of the things I would say is that, you have cohorts of students that are stronger in certain areas over time. And so we saw it this evening, right? 5th grade was a very strong class, right? And it wasn't just one content area. They were strong in all content areas. And so I was going to add, too, one of the pieces that we always take into consideration, and maybe this is why we pause a little bit and don't present our district improvement plan until October, is because summer happens, students arrive, and we want to see where they're at this point in time based on grade level standards in the fall. And so we also wait a little bit and gather that information again before we make our final presentation to you all, because as I mentioned, these are students, these are not numbers, right? This is exposure to curriculum, these are teachers. We want to also make sure that we don't overpromise and underdeliver also, while still kind of moving that needle. So we take the fall administration of our NWA assessments as well, and recognizing that this is like one little minuscule snapshot when it comes to Smarter Balanced and GSS. Like, time keeps moving. So I think a lot of our decisions are really based on data that we get in this moment in time, right in the fall, and it really helps us make some better decisions, more informative, timely decisions based on achievement at this point in time in the fall. Hope that helps. Yep.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
I guess one of my first questions is, I always ask for, okay, when do we have the accountability part of the conversation? So, and I'm not looking for that, I'm not placing blame, anything, SILs. We're now in our second year of the SIL program.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any data from last year that moving to full-time SILs was beneficial? Because on the surface, the numbers don't look it, because we didn't have SILs full-time SILs the year before, and we missed target. So is there anything you can kind of square up?
Yeah, the one thing I would say is I disagree a little bit, because if you look at individual grade levels, and that's why that chart is important, there are some marked improvements and success relative to focus areas that a curriculum and instruction leader may work towards within a specific year. For example, I'll talk about 6th grade math. That was a specific targeted area that individual worked with those teachers on. It was a new curriculum, it was a new implementation, and new teachers had no exposure to that curriculum previous to that work. The team came together to collaborate with the administration, really analyze data. There was a new intervention model in there. We also revised the different resources for students that were receiving intervention. We have transition to algebra now, and we have do the math as well. So coupled with that, we saw marked improvement from the previous year around student achievement by 14 points. I don't take that lightly. I think it was because our curriculum instruction leaders really do analyze the data individually within their areas of oversight, and they make decisions around where do they have to put most of their time. And so this year, specifically in ELA, we know that 6th and 7th grade are two areas that the curriculum, she's new this year, the curriculum instruction leader wants to really focus curriculum implementation, learning experiences, and working with teachers to really design lessons that are directly connected to standards.
Okay, then my related question is, for where the curriculum has changed, right? Because we have instituted some of the state programs. One of the questions I asked last.
Reading, literacy?
Yeah.
Specifically?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions I asked was, is the rigor of the state program at the level that we should expect in Weston.
So let me
yeah,
clarify.
yeah.
So it's not a state program, right? These are vetted resources through a unbiased or a an unaffiliated partner, which is Ed Reports, What Works Clearinghouse. You can look online, and they are unaffiliated with the state. And they have a whole list of indicators to determine quality, effectiveness, focus, coherence, and alignment to standards. So when the district literacy committee came together, there's a list of options, right, that districts can choose from. The Weston District Literacy Team spent a year in review evaluating those resources to ensure that the tool that we chose was aligned to the science of reading and was going to meet our needs for our students in the district. So the American Reading Company is the core resource that we have chosen. Any other district could choose whichever one they want. That was the one that we chose. So kindergarten through second grade adopted last year. And we have seen and we've showed some marked improvement around some of our summative assessment data in K1 and 2, especially with our subgroup students data with our students with disabilities and looking at some of the achievement that they've made even in a short period of time. And this year is year 2 for them, and then year 1 for grades 3, 4, 5. And this year, the new curriculum instruction leader and I will be exploring whether or not we want to adopt a 6th grade tool as well.
Okay, and my final question is, I think you sort of addressed it. So the cohort, which I had to kind of adjust myself, this is from last year. So last year's 5th grade, we're actually talking about they're in 6th grade
Current
this year.
6th graders.
So is there special attention or special programming going on, for example, if that cohort's struggling with math? The current 12th grade cohort, which I guess Sharon's son is in, struggled a bit with.
They've struggled, sorry. If you've tracked them, math has been a soft spot for them all along, ever since I first started coming to these meetings. However, that being said, COVID hit them at a really awkward and horrible time too. And because they were in 7th grade when they got sent home, and then 8th grade was, a difficult year. So they kind of got clobbered that year.
Yeah.
They needed the extra help. They really couldn't afford COVID, and we didn't have any choice. It's unfortunate. So that's kind of how, as a parent, that's how I've seen that cohort kind of go through.
Yeah, and our work this summer, as I mentioned, really has been working to see how our curriculum articulation from Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Pre-Calc, and the resources that we're using in those courses are helping to unpack some of those foundational skills that they're going to need when they transition to, beyond Weston. And this year we have are fortunate because Megan and her team are really looking at how do we support students that may need some additional support in our math lab or our literacy lab, not just English, but not just math, but also English. And what are the tools that we're using to help support them fill those gaps? High school, to be fully transparent, when it comes to evidence-based tools for literacy and math, it's very scarce. There's not a lot of really high-quality, evidence-based, research-based tools. So what we tend to rely on are resources that are available in curriculum documents, and then we're building it ourselves to meet the needs of our students.
So for the 6th graders, so the anomaly, unfortunately, because of COVID, is our current 12th graders. For the 6th graders, though, there is some custom tailoring going on, so to speak, to identify where the trouble area is for them, so that we don't see this cohort just kind of matriculate through the system and then at 12th grade be like, sorry, but it's good to see, it's good that the problem hasn't lingered into other grades. So we are doing things to help out the specific current 6th grade cohort so they don't wind up going through the system sort of at a disadvantage.
Absolutely, and that's why those formative tools that we talk about, we talked about in June, are so critical to our work, because it's not assessment data like this, where it's a snapshot, one point in time, and then you don't get the data until 3 months later, and then the students are already transitioning to the next grade level. So we really value some of our formative assessment tools and our curriculum-based assessments to help us understand what those gaps are so we can intervene.
So also, I want to clarify what I said. I don't think that by any stretch of the imagination, the current 12th graders were just kind of like left to die on the vine by any stretch of the imagination. But if you look at the testing here, they were in 7th grade, so they've been tested in 6th grade. They were in 7th grade when they got sent home, and they didn't really start attending. They didn't get back into the classroom until their freshman year. So at that stage, the testing is done. And also at that stage, math kind of really diversifies. You have some kids who are in advanced math classes, and you have some kids who are still like in basic algebra. So I think it was really difficult to kind of get a complete grasp on what that cohort was doing. And I'm sure, I know for a fact that there were a lot of resources thrown towards that class in math in particular. It's just unfortunate that I think that for the kids learning, it was just they were behind the 8 ball already, and that on top of it, I think that I think that they did their best. So yeah.
And just to clarify, the basis of my question was: are they an anomaly, or do we have an institutional problem? And it sounds like they're an anomaly because of COVID, and that was the basis of my question: is it institutional or anomaly? Yeah.
Do you mean institutional as in, I think the cohort, David, you were referring to is this year's 7th graders, which was last year's 6th graders.
No, she's talking about the 11th graders.
You were talking about the seniors. I'll focus on this year's 7th graders then, who are last year's 6th graders, because that's still an open question. Is it institutional why they're suffered a little bit last year? I mean, they didn't have a great year, according to these numbers. And is that, what's going to happen now if they're 7th graders? So there's really 2 issues at hand. Is there something currently in 6th grade that may undermine the hero class that were 5th graders last year? And then similarly, the 7th graders this year seem to need a little bit of help, right? Because they were a little under the weather academically last year. So I guess there's 2 open questions. And I'll focus less on the capability of the kids and more institutionally. Is there something that is happening in 6th grade that needs to be addressed with immediacy? And then again in 7th grade, because the kids need some help immediately. So that's sort of an institutional question rather than the kids as heroes or non-heroes.
I would just add that when we talk about institutional variables, one of the grounding pieces of Tier 1, which is for all students, is a solid, vertically articulated curriculum that is directly connected to grade level standards. And we are still in the design and revision process of a clearly articulated K through 12 curriculum for ELA and math. We've made significant strides to revise and align curriculum in every grade level in a short period of time. But again, as I mentioned before, our focus for ELA is going to be 6, 7, and 8 alignment. We've done a significant amount of work K through 5. This year is 6 through 8. And in math, as you saw, our adoption, this is the first year that we've revised curriculum in the summer, and we now have a clearly articulated standards-aligned curriculum from 6 all the way to Algebra 1 and even looking at Algebra 2. So it will be interesting to see and re-ask that question give me one more year. Because curriculum design and adoption takes a lot of time, and when you're really revising and are recreating a K-12 articulation, it's a huge undertaking in a very short period of time. And so we are still a little sporadic with that, with 13 grade levels, but we're getting there. Does that make sense?
Do you, for the other districts in our DIRG, do you have any idea if any of them, or some of them, or all of them, also adopted a new program?
So Wilton for math adopted illustrative back in, when I started here, they were 3 years before us. They are now adopting K-5 as well for illustrative math, and they're going to be in their year one full adoption K-5 this school year. For literacy, I believe we are the only district that has adopted the American Reading Company, but I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look to see where they are with their transition. I know that ER9 they were still exploring either American Reading Company or Into Reading, and they all asked for delayed implementation plans. So they get 2 more years to do what we did 2 years ago because of their request. And if you look at, you're welcome to look at on the state site, each district had to present their literacy plans and as well as their implementation timelines, and all of them are required to choose a tool by a certain period of time and start implementation because they waited. We are not in that boat.
Other questions, comments? Tina?
Tina, is there more that you have to take us through, or should we jump into more questions?
Go ahead. Nope, this is it.
So I'll make a tiny joke. The tiny joke is this presentation needs more pictures. And the joke, but what I mean is not a joke actually, is that you all very often talk about this is one element of many things. And yet when we then try to look at the many things, it often gets distilled down to this. I think these numbers are relevant. It's good we're looking at them, and I'm glad that we are, for sure. But if you even look at how much contextual conversation went into, like, well, is it COVID? Is it COVID learning loss? Is it this cohort? Is it digital interface for the test? And this would just be a little gentle plea again for when we come back to this October 21st. If there is contextual, qualitative data, things like that we can look at, that's always helpful with this. And I'll give you a specific example why. I share David's desire to try to understand the SILS success program, but I think it's very unlikely we're going to be able to say, oh, that number right there means the SILS program is succeeding or not. So very likely for the SILS program, I'm imagining it's the number of teachers who have utilized this resource, or how quickly they're adopting such and such function, or even how much those particular teachers are missed from the classroom, as an example. So as we're looking at these numbers, which I think are important, it's helpful, anything you can do to help us get a complete picture, even if it's just us looking at information and data. So qualitative also helps along with the quantitative.
Sure. Yeah, we did a much more extensive presentation in June with the other ones, so this was just a quick snapshot. But point taken, and in October, we'll make sure that we have a little more balance between the quantitative and qualitative.
I have one more question. As far as ELA, it's American Literacy Curriculum. Is it the American Literacy? Is that what it's called?
American Reading Company?
American Reading Company, sorry. When did we adopt that again?
So last year was the first year in K through 2.
Okay.
Right, and then we are moving up to 3 through 5 this year. So year 1 for 3 through 5 at West, year 2 at ARC, K2, sorry.
All right, so the ELA scores here don't reflect that at all. Okay, that was my question.
Nope.
Right.
Not yet. Great, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Yes. So as far as my update, this is our first meeting of the new school year, and I would like to go and give the opportunity for each principal to speak about how the last few weeks have gone, and to highlight some key things that are new and exciting at their schools. And according to the agenda, we're going to start with Weston High School and Principal Canetta. We're going to go in the reverse area. Megan?
Hi, everyone. It's exciting to talk about the beginning of a new school year. Although the girls, students probably stole my thunder. And rightly so, as students should. So we, as Ms. Gavoni mentioned, we welcomed a number of staff to Weston High School, and things are going really well. We have a wonderful administrative team, and we're all working really well together, and it's very exciting. We're doing a lot of knocking on wood these days because things have started smoothly, so continue to knock somewhere. We had packed each day for, which is our advisory, for each day of our opening week, which was a great connection for kids throughout the week. We also started with class meetings for each of our grades. And as the students mentioned, we ended the week with our Trojan kickoff, our Unity walk, and the formation of our W, which is always a great picture that we use throughout the year as well. They mentioned our first home game. While the score was disappointing, our student section remained in support through much of the third quarter, if not the whole game. And a shout out to Mr. Brooks, who is our new band director. As they said, as they mentioned, the pep band was just incredible. I think it was 5 times the size of what I've seen in recent years, and even Mr. Berkowitz mentioned the same. So we're really excited to see that. For those of you who are fans, I want you to know that we are bringing our pep band over closer to the student section, as you might have seen Friday night, and that's where the pep band will remain, and we're likely giving students in the pep band those 2 sections because it really lends itself to some high spirit during the games, and we expect an even larger pep band turnout next home game. Our Spirit Week is going to continue into September. We have an exciting new activity night that the kids really want to have a go at. We're going to have the Colony Pizza Truck there, cornhole, spike ball, all those fun things. Monday night of our Spirit Week, followed by the homecoming dance and homecoming. We had 4 National Merit Scholarship semifinalists that were announced, so 4 times the number of last year, which is very exciting for this class. We have our club fair coming up this Wednesday that we're doing throughout our lunch waves. The students can walk through our gallery and our hallways and see all there is to offer to join some clubs. They mentioned a senior trip. So the seniors came to me and they said, we really save all the fun senior stuff until the end of the year. We want to try something at the beginning of the year to create some spirit and like a family kind of atmosphere of the senior class at the beginning of the year. I said, great. What do you want to do? They said, we'll get back to you. They landed on it, which if you've been there, it's at Jordan's Furniture. It's the indoor rope course. So our seniors are likely doing that on the day of our PSAT, which is great. It's an awesome activity on that day. We're also beginning our partnership with Challenge Success, as many of you know and you've heard me talk about. We're sending a group of 10 teachers, school counseling members, and a couple of our new administrators to a conference there, September 27th into September 28th. So we're really excited about the outcome of that. Parents, families, you'll see it back to school night. We're going to love to get some feedback from our families, from our students and our staff, taking another survey, the Challenge Success Survey, which really lends itself to more specific questions about their high school experience, academics, academic integrity, and all of that. So, and through all of this, we are constantly telling our students that high school is supposed to be fun. So that's why we invest so much in, our spirit activities, kickoff, and we're also supporting them in excelling. So you can come and hear all about it and see all about it next Thursday night at Back to School Night. For the 9th graders, it will start at 6 p.m. and for the rest in the library with their counselors, and for everybody else, it begins at 6:30 next Thursday. So look forward to seeing you all there.
Thank you. For Weston Middle School, as Principal Canetta said, it's exciting to start a new school year. We also welcomed quite a few new staff members, some of them that are actually shared between WIS and the high school, especially our music teachers. We continued a tradition that we started last year, which is the day before school, we had an ice cream social for our new sixth graders as a way to welcome them to the middle school. And that was a huge success. As you have heard, most likely, we rolled out the Yonder pouches at the middle school this year, and it was very smooth. Several parents reached out to me in advance. They had some questions. They actually helped me anticipate those questions, and we have the frequently asked questions on our website. So if you haven't checked that out, I would encourage you to look at the Weston Middle School Yonder frequently asked questions. What our teachers are noticing is that now that students don't have their cell phones before school, when they actually come in to the building, they're actually talking to each other and having conversations. So we are seeing students be much more social than they have in the past. One of the things that we also learned from experience is how important it is for students to relock those Yonder pouches as they leave, because the pins, the locking mechanism, can be bent or damaged if it's in the unlocked position in a backpack full of books or other belongings. So that was something that we were telling the students to please relock it. We actually learned from experience that it's really important that they do. A couple of weeks ago, we had our welcome assembly to the new school year, and we introduced our new clubs and activities. On last Friday's morning show, we also promoted those clubs and activities, and there's a link on our website as well that we sent home to parents so that everybody knows what clubs and activities we are offering this year, when they meet, and who the advisor is. Our back-to-school night is this Thursday, starting at 6:30, and we are also rolling out the Panorama Survey this week. Our students will be taking that during their Connect advisory period. And I think that was everything that I had to say for the opening of the middle school, and I'll pass it.
Great. Thank you. Good evening. We've also had a great start to the year. I feel like the students are in like a good rhythm now. We're 3 weeks of school, and it feels like we've always been there. We began this year like we usually begin. Our first few days of school, we have grade level assemblies, and we meet with our students, and we really take time to talk about WISP Pride, our expectations, some of the fun things that'll be coming up, and really it's a great way for us to sort of set the tone and build that community in our grade levels. So that was a really nice way to start our year. Last week we had 2 back-to-school nights. Our 3rd grade and our 4th grade parents came, and that was really well attended. It was really the 2 really nice evenings. And this year we added something new. We felt it was important for our parents to get to meet our special area teachers that they don't normally get to meet. So our music and our art and our PE. And so we opened up our school a little bit early on last Tuesday at our 3rd grade back to school, and made it welcome any parent that wanted to come in and meet a music teacher or world language or counselors, that it was open for them, and it was really well attended. It was such a fun night. I know Tina was there, and it was just a busy, fun evening, and so it's something we're going to continue to do going forward. Tomorrow night is our last back-to-school night for our 5th grade parents. And this Friday, we're actually going to be pulling grade level assemblies again to take time to recognize and to celebrate all the summer learning that our students did in both reading and in math. So those will be really a great opportunity to come together. And our music teachers are doing great. I think our new strings teacher is like every day she turns around, there's a new form for another violin or another viola. And so she's like today I was trying to help her put schedules together, and I said, where's your lunch in your schedule? I mean, there's so many lessons, but which is great. It's a good problem to have.
All right, thank you. So at Hurlbut, we had a wonderful opening as well. It was so exciting to have everyone back in the building after the summer. It's a little quiet in the summer in the schools, so we were excited to welcome our students back. A lot of what we do at the beginning of the year with our youngest learners in the district is to make sure they feel comfortable and connected to their school. For some of our preschoolers, it is their first school experience, and for all of our kindergartners, it is their first formal school experience in an academic setting, and oftentimes their first full day of school. So starting with Meet the Teacher, and then in the first week of school, our teachers spend a tremendous amount of time making sure that they feel connected to each other, to their peers, connected to their teacher, and to their staff. Lisa often talks about those strong connections in the district, and it really is paramount at Hurlbut that our youngest learners feel seen, welcomed, and really close to all the staff members and students that they spend their days with. Our teachers have been working with all of our students to orient them to the building and to of course, our motto, be safe, kind, and responsible. We explicitly teach what that looks like in our school across the school day, and hopefully they are taking that knowledge home too. We encourage families to use that motto at home. It pretty much covers just about everything. We did have our first assembly to celebrate all of our summer learning. Our students had a tremendous response this year to their summer and math learning logs. So if you read our upcoming September newsletter, you'll see just how many. I'm going to leave that as a surprise, but we were very pleased. Our students were very excited to come back and share everything they had done over the summer. And also, we had 2 back-to-school nights so far. We had our preschool and kindergarten, where we mimicked what WIS did. We had all of our special area teachers, special education teachers, all the related services at our preschool and kindergarten back-to-school night as a welcome to our school orientation. And we had a tremendous turnout as well. Our library was packed with families. We did have a new staff member comment. They were just overwhelmed with our parent turnout, and had come from another district and said, oh my gosh, we have such involved parents here. So I think we get a little spoiled by that and used to it here, but to hear it from somebody new that was really just overwhelmed with the interest and the excitement for our parent community was nice to hear. We had our first grade back to school night as well, and on Wednesday we will have our second grade back to school night to welcome those families back. And we have already, of course, been showered with support and working very closely with our PTO. They are really a wonderful asset to us, and they do so much for our schools. So a shout out to our wonderful PTO.
Thank you, principals. Now I would like to give the different departments an opportunity to speak, starting with Safety and Security Director Rios.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, everyone. I just want to give you a brief update regarding some of our security enhancements since we last met. We have upgraded our cameras and our servers. We're finishing the final touches on that in the next week or two. We have a couple camera adjustment, just a couple minor things that we are tweaking, but I'm pleased in the fine work Dan's staff did on our IT department and our security integrator. I think we're going to definitely reap the benefits of a new system within Weston. And again, want to thank the town of Weston. This money was approved through the capital improvement plan. So working with the Board of Education and collaborating with us, we certainly are thankful for that. We also are looking at improving signage around our school areas. Again, reminding, we do have an open campus, but again, we're asking the public to respect our playgrounds and our school grounds during school hours. So you will see school signage. There have been some signs that have been posted, and we're looking to increase that in the near future, again, to remind parents and those who want to walk through our schools, our school grounds, that, we just prefer they not. It does kind of, it's unsettling, as you can understand, sometimes for staff and parents when they see strangers on our campus. We have ordered window shades for lockdown purposes. Again, these are going to be more user-friendly. They're going to be in all of our schools across the district shortly. Once they come in, we will get them up. We recently had ICS training, Incident Command training, with a collaborative effort with state FEMA officials, the Board of Education, school members, school administrators, and also the police department. Chief Henyon and Captain Berdacki were there. that all-hazard approach is important because when we go in incident command, starting with like at the building level, it's the principal, assistant principal, but we need to figure out very quickly who's in charge, who has specific roles, and that could be for an emergency situation, a crisis, it could be weather-related, it could be a criminal act, and even we also could use incident command system even for a planned event like a graduation or a high school football game. So it's important, I think, that we continue down that path and practice that and understand our roles and our responsibilities and hopefully leading into a future tabletop exercise. I probably should have mentioned initially that I'm very pleased that our whole security team has come back this year. We have one new security guard, Ralph DeLuca, who's doing very well at the middle school. He's a welcome addition from Darien. Very pleased that Ralph is with us. The rest of the team is in place. Robert Daubert, who was at the middle school, has now moved up to the high school, working with Megan and her team, doing a very good job up there that I'm hearing. So I'm pleased that the team is back in place. A couple other things just to mention. We also are looking to enhance our Alertus system. Alertus, as you know or may not know, is our emergency notification mass notification system. That allows us to, at a moment's notice, make notification to various members, various staff, whether it's a lockdown button or through consoles. We can make notifications immediately if we have to go into a secure mode in our school, if we have to evacuate. So we're looking to enhance the capability of that, and that's going to be done. We're going to prioritize additional training with activation and notification protocols, again, to achieve optimal emergency readiness. And finally with that, a lot of this supports our monthly drills, which is a key component. It's kind of an assessment. Every time we do a drill, we pre-brief, we debrief afterwards, and we really want to know, how are we doing when it comes to emergency situations, if we have to evacuate the building, if we're going into a secure or lockdown. I know that there, have been many questions out there. The tragic shooting in Georgia and the school shooting. After living through a school shooting and being a first responder in Newtown Sandy Hook, I certainly understand that initially when there's a school shooting, there are a lot of questions. There's a lot of reaction to what takes place. And there is also a lot of people will come out and whether it's vendors or people in the know, and they are going to offer a lot of services and provide a lot of input. So I think it's important that we evaluate and look at every situation. No two school shootings are the same. There are, some new wrinkles that took place in Georgia that certainly I suggest, and our leadership team and with Lisa spearheading the effort, we've initially talked about, and we are reviewing, generally we are reviewing all of our security measures to again, keep all of our students and our staff safe here in Weston. So that's kind of the update, as brief as it may have been, that I could give you tonight.
And if I can just add, specifically, we don't usually respond to public comment, but it was on this theme. There are, we do have a system. It's not the system that they have in Georgia, and we had already begun looking at what other enhancements that are available to our current system, and Director Rios is in the process of gathering that information, because we do know that there are other enhancements, including portable alerts, what people were talking about. I hate the word panic. I like to, but portable alert notification systems. And by portable, yes, that's something that's actually on a person, and they're not just looking at a phone. We know about these capabilities. There are certain things we have. We don't want to go into too much detail, but that's definitely in the works and is a high priority for us.
Just one more comment. Some of you have may have read that Westport has closed their campuses to outside individuals during the school day. I think, I know when we spoke about school security, we talked about how close the playgrounds are at the elementary schools, and is there some way to address that? One way to address it is to close School Road. School Road is a public road. We can't, as a board, do it without the approval of the Board of Selectmen. Which is a conversation I've actually started. Not sure, where that'll go, but one thing we can do, and I think Lisa and I have talked about it, is to start posting or post signage to tell people they're not supposed to be using the track, the playground, the tennis courts during the school day. How we enforce that, I think that's still work in progress, but it's certainly something that we've started to talk about. So it's not, it's important, that we do that. And I know Lisa's had conversations with the chief about it, and so it's going to be an ongoing discussion.
Yeah, if I can just add, I so appreciate the partnership we have with Chief Ed Henyon. He's just the best. I've probably already had 3 meetings where he's come over, or I actually went to his office because we were working on finalizing that MOU for the SROs. He's just terrific. Remember, he came to find us. Jody had said, oh, she went to buy her lunch at the high school, and we're driving back in the golf cart with our lunch, and he pulls up in the car, and it's like, I wanted to talk to you. I said, okay, follow us, and we'll go back. It's that kind of a relationship, which is really so helpful because he is a true partner in this work. That being said, I do think that we can, when we see what Westport did and saying that, when you are on our school facilities, the public should not be gaining access to our school facility. It's a little bit trickier here. We have a public road. We're all together on one road. We have public sidewalks that go down School Road. And so, the public can walk on the public sidewalk going down School Road. Where it becomes more challenging is when the public starts going into the campus around our schools. And when you look at a school facility and you think that the school facility is extending outside of the building. There was a class today we saw when we went by in our golf cart, 4th grade class, Miss Luby's class was outside. We want to encourage that. That book that we're reading about, planful, unstructured play or taking students outside to nature. It's very hard when there are people that are walking their dogs right alongside of our kids. And so I would encourage them to walk their dogs on the public sidewalk that does not go right next to or going into by our playgrounds. That track is right next to the 5th, 3rd, and 4th grade playgrounds. Or there's a PE class, they're out there all the time. And then we have community members that want to walk around it. I get it. It's a beautiful facility to do that. However, at some point we have to, and I think we're at that point to say that while you're more than welcome outside of school hours, this is our school facility, and we really need to make sure that our students and staff feel comfortable and safe. And the most important thing is that our students feel calm also, and that they don't feel anxious. So that's something that we're going to be continuing to work on and to have conversations also with the town government, because it's very important.
Can I ask a quick question on that? So just so I have an understanding as to how it lays out, I understand that School Road is a public road. As you're coming from Town Center on School Road, you're going to have to take a right to either go up into Hurlbut, or further on, you take a right to go into Wiss.
Yes.
Are those both public roads as well?
No, and that's our school facility.
Great.
It's the road. So for example,
So,
we have School Road, but then you know the auxiliary road that goes between the
Yep.
high school and the intermediate school?
Yep.
A lot of pedestrians do walk on that. We have a gate at certain times, so cars can't drive through it. And we certainly encourage parents to pick up their kids going on that auxiliary road. But when the public is walking on that part instead of out on School Road, where there are beautiful sidewalks now, that's where it gets very complicated.
So is that where we were putting the signage, basically, for pedestrians saying this road is private property during school hours?
We're not there yet. We put up all new signage additional around all of the playgrounds and the resource areas. That's the next level we have to look at this month.
Yeah, because I think,
But we
School
have to
Road
tell people,
itself is
most
a
people are
beautiful
very
road.
cooperative.
Right.
They're not.
They just don't know. That's why I'm saying,
Exactly. And
if we
so
just
it's a
make them aware.
communication and how to inform people. Just say like, look, nobody wants to upset the kids.
No. And School Road, again, it's a beautiful area. It's a nice little shaded walk.
Yeah.
People like to walk their dogs. We get it. And that's part of why we all moved here, right? We like the
Yeah.
small town feel. But if they don't know, we can't expect them to adhere to our wishes as well. So I just think if we maybe are a little more public with our signage saying during these hours.
But it's not the road that goes into Hurlbut. It's the playground across from central office.
I understand. And that part is a different story.
Right.
And that we
Sure.
need to address, I think. Joe, we've talked about addressing that, and that's something that we will have to address. But at the same time, I'm just thinking about that road in
Yeah, yeah,
particular, because that is big. The kids for PE, they're outside, and we can't have.
Yes,
people-
and they go from the middle school to the high school track a lot. And,
Yeah.
and they're out and they're about. And when you add in other people into the mix, it puts people just, on an alert that is challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one other question too, while my mic is green. So I have to tell you, listening to these parents and reading the emails that we got, I also had the same thought when the horrible school shooting happened in Georgia, which is, wow, they actually had a lanyard with that around their neck. So I don't know what the cost is, but I'm sure that that's on your radar to take a look at and see if there's any possibility of us adopting a similar system, because the lady mentioned, help, I've fallen and I can't get up. We all have elderly parents that we've had to deal with, and those are, my mother had one, so I certainly understand the importance of something like that. And so hopefully that's something that we will look very closely at adopting as a school system. But again, I'm not the security specialist, you are, so I just leave it to you.
No, and I appreciate your comment, Sharon, because after I had read the article and I've had some discussions with Lisa, we've already started doing some of that preliminary work, and I've already checking in with some of my security colleagues just to see who offers it. So kind of stay tuned, but we are looking at it and really looking at it, taking a long, hard look at this and trying to better our current security measures as they stand today.
Joe, I have a couple of quick questions. So I think it was around 330,000 we approved last year for security initiatives. Is that right? It was,
Yeah, the
okay.
330, I think, was covering the cameras and the servers.
Okay. I think we need to tighten our procedures a little bit in that regard, because I know when we voted to authorize the 330,000 at the time, there was no commitment as to what the money was going to be spent on. At least my takeaway was there was 4 or 5 different menu items that you were considering, cameras being one of them. And my concern is that we spent $330,000 on something that's going to memorialize what has happened, and it's not going to prevent, delay, or slow down entry. So I think as a board, we need to tighten up a little bit where we approve money and where it gets spent, because, again, cameras in my mind, they're nice to have, but they memorialize what's happened, and we should be focused on the delay entry and this might not be the forum to talk about that, but I think we do as a board have to tighten up, because my understanding was we're approving $330,000 in initiatives, not $330,000 on cameras.
If I may, David, and I know that this was discussed in executive session, just so you know, this has been one, I would say, this particular phase of ongoing work by funds from the town, correct, Phil, that we have kept track of and done other initiatives. And so I don't want, decisions were made based on things that were previously done as well, like hardening the outside of the facility and the other things. The cameras were a significant area because we had a mismatch, correct, Dan, of different types of cameras, and the servers were so old that they couldn't be supported. So that's why that was prioritized. We certainly would welcome another executive session if you'd like to give us input, but I know that there has been a plan for this funding because we have a fiduciary responsibility to the town, and the way we have spent this funding across, at least I know the last 2-3 years, as I've been superintendent. Part of our challenge also is that sometimes there are prices, and then the prices, are adjusted, and they go up, and that we make different adjustments. But a great deal of that money did go to cameras, but that doesn't mean that prior funding we had received didn't go to other things that were very important as well. So, if you would like to have another executive session before a budget or as we're developing for the next plan, because as you look at the capital plan, there are other projections of funding and security, and we can certainly do that and talk about other initiatives that would be important to put in.
And then Joe, can you just, on the Alert Us system, just relative to the parents that spoke today, where they're looking for that panic type of situation, can you tell us a little bit more? Is the Alert Us system only for notifications, or can it be used to report an incident?
It can be used to report, and it also can be used to receive. So staff members can receive messages. So
Okay.
if there's a reporting, you can receive messages. There's a two-way messaging system, and there's also the lockdown features that we currently have.
Okay, so the alert system, I've seen the buttons and the screens in the various schools. So that is a two-way type of system. I've seen the screens where you can get messages, but if something should happen, I presume it's like a fire system. Somebody can push a button or do something at the actual device to alert to alert somebody.
Yes.
Is that somebody the police department?
That's part of it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's a big, that's a big part of it, right? We want to get the first responders coming immediately. We want to get the good guys here as soon as possible. So they have that capability and the communication center, and there'll be immediate notification.
Yeah, and I agree. We should be looking at the systems we have, such as Alert Us, and look at how to expand it. I'm not a big believer in you throw away what you have because there's something else better out there. There's something better out there every day. So it's good to hear that the Alert Us system is a two-way system and it can be expanded. So that sounds good.
Hopefully Alert Us will be coming up.
So I'm just going to jump in really quickly. First off, I want to thank Lisa for putting out that letter today. I think it's really important and very helpful to demonstrate to the community. I think that we're, committed to security and safety, and that we take that seriously, and we're trying to be as proactive as we can be. And I appreciate Joe being here tonight, so thanks. I just have a couple comments and a couple questions. Just Joe, I know you're still reviewing it, but any initial sort of takeaways or learnings from what happened in Appalachia and that shooting that sort of caused you to think, well, maybe there are ways in which we can, redeploy or implement different systems? So I know some of them were mentioned today, right? With the Ledger alert system, as well as the automatic locking doors. Right. Okay. I think the SRO program obviously proved effective down there. Anything there in terms of how we're using, deploying the number of SROs here, sort of from your perspective, just an overall, just initial reaction from you?
Well, first of all, typically after a mass casualty event or you have a school shooting, there's an after-action report that is written and, vetted through law enforcement, whether it's the local police department, state police, Secret Service. That report has not come out yet. So those best practices, I believe, will be developed once the final investigation, once it goes through the investigative steps. So there's still more to glean from that particular shooting, but what did initially come out was, the communication piece, which centered around the panic buttons, the lanyards that staff was carrying, and also their door locks. Currently after Sandy Hook, I'm sure you remember, things were changed where, we can lock the doors from the inside now. And that's across Connecticut and probably across the country, where you don't have to go out into the hallway anymore with the key and expose yourself. So there's probably going to be more to come after this shooting, particularly, more specific. So we'll have to wait from a law enforcement agency. But I was, I look at our campus, and again, feeling that we have a safe campus, knowing that we have 2 SROs in our schools, how close the police department is, and how fortunate they were that that SRO was there in a timely manner to engage the shooter, and there was no further action needed, and there was no further loss of life. So I am pleased that we do have those measures, and the mile of safety officer that I bump into just about every day goes up and down this campus, that a lot of school districts, I don't know if they're fortunate as we are. But constantly evaluating, I think the first and foremost is our communication piece, because we need to make, instantaneous communication to staff, to students, so that they can put themselves, away, get them out of harm's way. So evaluating, whether it's Alertus, our radios, are there various systems that we have that work in conjunction with our cameras, and see something, say something, training our personnel and making sure that they're confident in our systems. I mean, it's always kind of a wake-up call when that happens, to look at our measures, even though Georgia, I think, is a little bit different. But, that's why we're currently, again, talking about this tonight, and unfortunately, we'll probably be talking about this again down the road.
Yeah, look, between the letter Lisa put out today and some of your commentary tonight, what I was hoping to hear, and I've heard some of it, and so thank you for that, was just sort of an overview of the current status of where we stand, right? An update as to what's been going on and sort of some of the completion of some of the measures that we've undertaken over the summer through the beginning of the school year. I have some questions about that, probably not for this forum. So I do think probably an executive session, Steve, just to all level set here as soon as we can. And then, of course, finally, I think just, when I think about the coming year, what can we expect on this prioritization schedule, to David's point, in terms of, okay, what are the next steps we're going to take? Are we going to, and there were many things that were raised by the police and Chief Henyon, prior bollards, ballistic glass, the perimeter and the playgrounds. I know we're talking about that now. We can only talk so much in a public forum. I'd love to hash that out so we're all on the same page and sort of entertain some of these additional measures that we can take sooner than later, just so we remain proactive. And again, throughout the rest of the year, I think people can have confidence that, we're doing our duty and doing our best to protect the students, the administrators, and the teachers.
Just let me add something to that. I agree, Michael, and we should absolutely schedule this. We can talk about it. But if you think back on the presentations and the discussions we've had with the police department over the last couple of years, and the capital that has been approved, we had this special appropriation, Phil, 2 years ago? Is it 3 years ago? 2 years ago? I mean, what they recommended and how we responded, thinking back on, this unfortunate recent shooting, was at the elementary schools, at the elementary school level, the fight takes place outdoors. We want to keep them away, and we've addressed that with a considerable amount of spending to do that. And in the high schools, or middle and high school, the fights take place indoors, and that's where we've allocated an armed presence. So, you know, can we do more? I guess we're going to discuss that. I'm sure you can always do more. But I do think the initial steps we've taken over the last couple of years, I guess, Phil, in total, you've probably spent close to $900,000 over the past couple, 3 years, yeah. So, yeah, but we should do that. I absolutely agree.
I'll jump in with a question on the security, since I didn't know we were going to drill down into this one example in Georgia, but I just actually copy and pasted this from an article I read when it happened, just because it just caught my attention so much. And you don't have to respond to it tonight, but it's worth raising, because I think the last we visited this, I don't remember what the answer was. But anyway, the quote from the New York Times is, the streets surrounding the rural campus of about 1,800 students were clogged with law enforcement officers and emergency responders. Parents, some parking more than a mile away, walked toward the school to find their waiting children. Traffic was snarled around the school as parents scrambled to reunite. There was someone handing out bottles of water to parents who had left their cars to walk the final mile and a half to the school. So the question is, we're thinking about all the ways in which the buildings are protected and things like that. So obviously try to protect the kids, but in terms of people accessing for like reuniting plans and things like that, I would just suggest that we weave that into this, only because if the plan is like everyone stay at home to keep space for emergency responders, I don't think that worked here. And I have serious concerns in this community, given the way traffic is a bottleneck. So I would just flag that part of it if we do have further conversations.
And that's a good point, Chad. I know that I've had some discussions with the chief and members of the Weston Police Department about that particular point, what you brought up. You know, if there was a major incident at one of our schools and who's blocking off what road, because we can assume, as I think you're indicating, the parents are going to come, even though we don't want them to. So that's something that we have to engage in further discussion with our law enforcement partners and first responders, because we want to make sure that they can get here safely and in a timely manner.
Not only that, but we also have to make sure that, like you said, the parents are going to come. The parents need to be told where to go, because they're going to, so, I don't know, it's going to be situational, but you just have to be prepared that when a notice goes out, if ever, let's just put it that way, because hopefully it's not a when, but if ever a notice would have to go out to our community, where we would tell our parents to go, because they're definitely going to come. I would, and I know better, but I still would, because it's my child. So whether it's the reuniting will be taking place here, do not come to the, it's still a dangerous situation or whatever, meet at whatever parking lot or whatever, something. But that just has to be thought of in advance, because clearly when the situation would be happening, cool heads prevail. So
yeah, I don't want anyone leaving here tonight thinking that these conversations haven't already taken place with the Weston Police.
Good. That is great to hear.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
And, you have someone like Sergeant Michelli, right? I always lose track of titles. Sergeant Michelli, who is the crisis person in the town. He was at the training in August as well. He stopped by. So I have every confidence that the police have an even higher level of training, and they know what to do, and they know people will come.
Yep.
And so
that's good.
There's-
That's good. I
there's
mean,
been
just
a
like
lot
when we
of-
hear
Exactly.
parents coming to these board meetings and talking about, you need to do this, and this, and in our heads we're like, we've already done
Yeah, the
4
poli-
of those
the
things.
police know.
The police know. That makes me feel
They
better.
have a plan.
Perfect.
Yeah, they know. One thing I sent out, it was probably about a year ago, I probably should send it back out, is a review of our drills and also our expectations for parents. We sent it out to the parents, like, if this happens, this is what we need you to do. That being said, it's very emotional. People, and we are in good hands with the Weston Police, many of whom were, quite frankly, very involved in what happened at Sandy Hook and are aware of what to expect, God forbid something happens.
Exactly, but just like we get announcements every time that there's a fire drill or a lockdown drill at the schools, I think it would be really helpful, Lisa, if you could just send out a parent refresher and say, parents,
Yeah.
today is here's your drill, if something were to happen.
Yeah, I will. I've already actually pulled that out.
Awesome.
And I do have to give a shout out to Michael, because Michael was the one that said to me, Lisa, we probably should be communicating something out, an update on security, and I had planned to, and then getting the sense when you turn on the news and all these things that are happening, not only in schools, it's like, yeah, I better get this out, because the public wants to be reinsured. They are entrusting us with their most precious children. And I take that really seriously, both as a superintendent and as a mother and a grandmother. This is serious stuff.
Right. Phil?
On that note, Director of Finance and Operations, Mr. Cross, will now take us through 2 agenda items.
Just firstly, before we jump into the financial, just want to do a quick operational update. I just want to thank our hardworking custodians, maintenance staff, and grounds crew for working behind the scenes to get the campus and schools ready for the start of the school year. I also want to thank our third-party partners who has contributed a lot to our various capital projects. We went in detail in our subcommittee meeting about the various capital projects that were completed over the past summer. I'm just going to give a quick overview of what those projects are. We had some delayed projects going back to fiscal year 22-23. We had a repointing of the bricks for the North House. We had a here handler at the high school that was delayed because of supply chain. In addition to that, we also had some parts that were incorrectly ordered by the company, so that has been complete and that is up and running. We've completed the HVAC project for the weight room and the dance studio, long overdue, as Lisa has pointed out several times. Fiscal year 23-24, we have finally gotten the majority of the bathrooms in the South House done. There's 2 remaining in the hallways. The plan is to have that done in the upcoming weeks. In addition to that, we've been planning to have the track work done now for several years. That the track has been resurfaced. We are waiting for that to be restriped. As of right now, the tentative date is September 27th, weather permitting. Fiscal 25 project, as Joe mentioned, we have completed the vast majority of the security initiative that were outlined in our capital projects. We've done district-wide paving at the parent pickup and drop-off at the West. We've repaved the entranceway by the middle school, leading towards the rear entrance. And we have also repaved the rear parking staff lot at the high school. We have replaced the seals throughout the building at the high school. Since then, we have had several window seals that have failed, and those will be replaced momentarily. We still need to do some recaulking and resealing of expansion joint. We'll be issuing an RFP for that. But we have cleaned up the buildings. We have done some power washing from pretty much for the entire district. East House and Southwest makeup air unit. We have done the demo on that, but again, similar to what we have been seeing over the past several years, we have some supply chain delay where that is concerned. We should get that pretty soon, and the plan is to have that done at the next long break, if not December, the one after in February, I believe. Hot water replacement. At the high school, we have replaced the hot water unit that's there. And we have, thankfully, after several years, finally added an AC unit to the staff break room at the middle school. Quick overview of the capital projects. Just want to jump into our fiscal 23-24 results. We haven't seen any significant changes since the last time we met. Where we are right now, we're looking to really spend approximately roughly 99% of our approved capital operating budget. We still have some money left over for unliquidated expenditures, and that covers anywhere from operations, supplies, and also in our PPS department. We do anticipate that this will be fully liquidated in the upcoming weeks. So we'll end the year spending $57,347,685, open encumbrance of approximately $597,000. In the packet, you will see just pretty much various percentages across the various categories. As I mentioned, most of these items are not new. We have discussed over the year all the issues that we've had, which all the savings related to salaries. We've discussed pension benefits. We've discussed benefits on a whole, primarily pension cost, and also health insurance census, which has driven pretty much the savings and unexpected, slightly over budget because of OPEB. We discussed professional services, where we're going to be over, but because we did not fill a position in salaries, there'll be an offset there. Property services, unintended repairs for drainage. As you've noticed, since we've had a lot of rain, we've seen that a lot of areas we just have a lot of drainage issues that we need to replace. We also need to address some drainage issues leading into the Xenon plant. We're working on that as well. We've had some septic issues that we've addressed. Pretty much we've addressed a lot of stuff trying to keep our buildings operational and functioning so that the students and staff will have a pretty much warm and welcoming environment that's conducive to learning. General supplies, we were able to pre-purchase items, textbooks for our reading program and also for math. Electricity, we're more or less in line with anticipated usage. The savings that we have here are really driven primarily by our virtual net metering contracts. We had credits coming forward from the previous years, and also for the period September through December, the plan, we were not charged for generation usage, which those two items pretty much attributed to the vast majority, if not all the savings related to electricity. We're pretty much where we anticipated to be on natural gas usage and also costs. Equipment, we had to replace several pieces of equipment district-wide. Again, we had better than expected revenue offset ranging from transportation credits. Let me check my list real quick. Transportation credits, participation fees, better than expected excess cost reimbursement. I'll get back there in a minute. Pre-K and non-resident tuition, and some other savings. As it relates to excess cost reimbursement, based on our final submittal for expenditures, we do anticipate that our total year expenditures will be less than previously submitted, which would mean that we will need to refund some money to the state. Yeah, state, because this is a reimbursement from the state. We've had this, I think we had a situation maybe a year or two ago. But again, this just kind of highlights all the various needs and the change in needs of the SPED PPS throughout the year. The way this will work, if this is truly indeed the case, that there will need to be a reimbursement, the offset will be on the funds that's received by the town for the Educational Equalization Grant. So this is approximately $41,000, more or less. And that's pretty much it in terms of the operating. Dental claims and expenditures are pretty much below anticipated spend. As we have discussed last year, we use our trends to guide our budgeting for previous years. For fiscal year 25-26, we did adjust the expenditure levels or the budget levels for dental claim and expenditures. So pretty much we use trend data to kind of guide our thinking as we plan our budget for the next year. So that's where we are. I'm sorry if I spoke too fast. Any questions related to this?
I have a quick question. 3308, which police fire, is that our mileage safety officer?
That includes our mileage safety officer and costs related also to the fire department.
Okay. So this is unaudited, but this is nearly what the expense was for last fiscal year, right?
This is, hold please.
Okay.
You're looking at a data, so I'm assuming that that is the case. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So no, there's nothing too deep about my question, other than just trying to get an idea of what we spent last year on the mile of safety officer. And so you said fire is a little bit in there as well, but.
Yeah, I mean, so last year we spent 106,000.
Yep.
And for this year, we're looking at approximately 109.
Okay, so what's the 118,000, the 117,799?
That's the budget.
Okay, got it. So, so this is essentially an unaudited number from fiscal year 23-24.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, so, and I think we've had this conversation extensively related to the mile of safety officer. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly what the final cost will be, and whether we like it or not, this is an overtime cost for the police department. So the officer who will be on the mile of safety duty, and I think the chief has mentioned that he tries his very best to rotate the entire staff, so everyone on the staff is familiar with our buildings and protocols and stuff like that. So the cost that we see here may fluctuate depending on the officer that we have. Any other questions related to the financials and operations? Thank you.
Non-lapsing?
We talked about, are you just going to tell us about the change in?
Yeah, so this is.
No, we talked about it with Jessica.
Oh, so.
The change, we know.
The change.
So now we have to
Bel-
decide what to do.
Right, but just so that the community knows exactly what we're talking about. So there's been a significant change to the non-lapsing account. The non-lapsing account where the Board of Education can, with permission, previously, with permission of the town funding bodies, set aside up to 2% of unexpended funds in any given year. The major change of this year is that the Board of Education no longer needs approval by the town funding bodies to establish a non-lapsing account by law. So this is just what the law says. So the only thing that is required, the significant change here, is that it only requires that the Board of Education approve the establishment of said non-lapsing account. In terms of how we move forward in the establishment of such a fund, that will require a larger discussion with the town bodies.
But it's for the fiscal year we just completed or the upcoming fiscal year?
The law is
the
in
current
place.
fiscal year?
Fiscal year 23-24, for the
So
one
the
just
one we
ended.
just completed.
That's correct.
And when does the town anticipate us returning?
We will report out to the town on audited numbers in October. So typically, the procedure is that we report to the Board of Ed, and at the next meeting, we will report out.
So this board has to make a determination
So if we're contemplating establishing a non-lapsing account for the fiscal year just ended, we can do that. However, there may be an expectation from the town that the funds that we had seen, that this is brand new, this was just voted on at the end of this recently concluded legislative session. So it may not be in everyone's best interest to establish this account for this year until we have had a discussion, a full vetted conversation with the Board of Finance, so we're all on the same page. We have in the past, the board has approved to make a request to establish a non-lapsing account, and I think I've always prompted that, but we have not had the support of the Board of Finance in previous years.
And when would you anticipate having that conversation with the Board of Finance?
I think the Board of Finance meets either the second or third Thursday of every month, so it would be in October, mid-October.
So this board has to make a determination.
Listen, we could do it this way. The board, there's not a motion in place. The Board of Education can make a motion to establish a non-lapsing account just to set the baseline so that the Board of Education, if they so choose, votes to establish this non-lapsing account. And then we can pass this on just for any other matters that we have done before for discussion with the Board of Finance. I know it gets tricky because of the change in law, but I think just based on our relationship with the Board of Finance, it is best that we do have this conversation and this discussion with them.
Okay, well.
I am recommending that the Board of Education establish a non-lapsing account, not to exceed the 2%. Currently, we're at 1% for the Board of Education to establish a non-lapsing account to the extent of our unexpended fund for fiscal year 23-24. To be discussed with the Board of Finance.
So I think the first thing we have to do is we have to do a motion on the financial report. And then if we want to do this motion, we have to have a motion to add a motion. Which we did once before. It did not look good.
Do we want to add a motion to vote on that right now, or do we want to?
I think the first thing we need to do is vote on the financial report.
Yeah.
In my haste to get to the next item, that did not happen. So why don't we do that first?
Can I have a motion to approve the 2024 fiscal or financial report?
Do the so moved. You can really move things along.
I'm so moved, but I move to approve the June 2024 financial report, including operations updates. May I have a second? Oh, you stole her thunder.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Lisa, do you want to say something?
No, I think now you should move forward with what you want to do about this non-lapsing account. If you want to change the agenda, as David said, to approve it tonight or not, but you can't approve it tonight without changing the agenda.
Phil, really quickly, Phil, aside from the expectation from the town for this year's, let's say, surplus, and assuming that we're going to have the conversation with the Board of Finance to sort of smooth things over, I guess, what are the other downside? What's the other downside? Is there any other downside to establishing this account?
From the perspective of the Board of Education, there is not.
Okay.
Oh, that's not true.
From our perspective, there is no downside to
Well, the
exception.
Board of Finance, let's make it in round numbers, $500,000.
Yes.
Next year, we come and ask for, $1 million. And they're going to say, fine, we'll give you $500,000 because you already have $500,000.
Correct. That would be the downside, but again, so if they do, right, and again, what we're talking about our operating budget. If they do that, and let's say they do that for fiscal year 25-26, if we cut our operational costs by that amount could potentially come back in the following fiscal year because we're just delaying whatever the cost is. I'm not necessarily proposing that we use the non-lapsing account to fund our recurring expenditure, but what we have tried to do, what I have tried to do in previous year is to have this buffer. Listen, for this year, right, fiscal year 24-25, we're really seeing challenges relating to SPED PPS that we may not necessarily have the funds to cover. And if we should exceed our overall budget for fiscal year 20, for this fiscal year, we would have to get a special appropriation. The special appropriation will affect our MBR. And we try to do things, and one of the reasons why I've advocated for the non-lapsing account is that if we have this in reserve, it will not have a negative impact on our MBR.
Here's the thing, and I'm speaking like a taxpayer. So the town has reserves now that should be returned to the taxpayers, or a portion of it. It just keeps growing without any use. I mean, it's a forced savings account. And at some point, I didn't hire the Board of Finance to create a savings account for me. At some point, you have to return it. I'm all in favor of doing what you're suggesting. On the other hand, we just can't let it grow and grow and grow. If we don't use it prudently, at some point you have to say, well, we're doing a mirror image of what the town's been doing.
Right, so this is, if we're using it for whatever it is, there's always the guardrails, which I've tried to explain before to the Board of Finance, that can be established around the non-lapsing account. The Board of Education could say, we will establish a non-lapsing account to not exceed $300,000, right? And if any given year, if in the following year, that fund is not used, then we can return it. So there's different ways that we can structure a non-lapsing account. It's not just to say that this money will just be there in perpetuity.
So there is a mechanism to go ahead and return it. It's just
Well,
based
we'll send
upon
it.
our discretion.
Correct.
No, we have to set.
Right,
that
so that's what I'm saying.
Right.
The board can establish this where it will be returned. And I've argued this point since I've started, and
No. I think it's fine because you always have the wild card of sped, right? And from a town's point of view, it would be a lot easier if we had the money than having to go back and ask for a special appropriation, which eats into the total special appropriations the town can afford.
which is an important point, because I think what we have seen historically is that special appropriations over the past couple of years has really been to the maximum amount that's been allocated based on the town charter. So, again, it's a good thing to have.
Yep.
Similar to, I think we're very transparent in terms of how we report to the Board of Education, and ultimately to the town, right? If there's a need, we will spend. If there's not a need, we will return. I think what we've seen over the past several years, yes, that we've had a surplus, but it also shows a thoughtfulness behind how funds are spent and how we allocate our resources, regardless of what's driving our surplus. Everything is thoughtful, right? It's not just, hey, we have the money, we can afford it, let's just spend. Everything that comes through, I see it, I scrutinize it, I ask the questions, and then things are approved. It's not just willy-nilly. So again, long discussion we can either have.
No, but we have to make a determination.
Whether or not we actually want to even have the vote, we have to make a determination, or are we?
We have to,
Can
we have to decide tonight if we want to vote. If we do, then we have to,
Which is a lot, since this was just introduced to us
Well, so Phil,
a few hours ago.
I know so if, in the past, have we had a non-lapsing account, it just simply had to be approved by the Board of Finance?
They never approved.
Correct.
Okay, and they typically do approve it?
Well, just to clarify, the Board of Finance have not broadly approved a non-lapsing account. The Board of Finance have approved specific expenditures to be spent from a non-lapsing account, but not broadly a 1% or 2%. But we have had specific requests, and they've approved, and that has been approved in the past.
And I think I asked Jessica this question, and I think, Steve, you may have answered it, but I may have forgotten the answer. I guess it goes back to what was the intent of the state to put this in place, and there's probably not a lot of towns that have 80% of their budget going into schools like we do. Do you know what the intent was?
I do not know the intent. I don't want to speak as to what I think the intent was.
And then just related, is there a chance, so if we have money left over and it goes into a non-lapsing account, the question I had asked Jessica, I think you answered, Steve, was, is that money restricted for Board of Education use, or is it available, although the town may historically give it back to us for future purchases, are they restricted in doing that, or does it go into a town general account?
So
the town general account.
With the non-lapsing account, if it's
No,
not spent?
If we give the money back.
If we give the money back,
right.
it goes
back
to
to the general fund.
It goes to the general fund.
Yeah, in the non-lapsing, it stays with us, but if we turn it back,
Right.
it goes to the town general fund.
Right. I will say, in all fairness to the Board of Finance, they've supported us in terms of what our requests are. My concern is that we have a year where things are bad, right? And the town has maxed out, without going back to the taxpayer, maxed out the amount that's allowed by charter, and there's no funds, and then we have to go to that mechanism where special town meeting and everything else. I think the Board of Education is very responsible in their utilization of funds, and they're very transparent in terms of any future usage of any said funds. Again, guardrails can be established to protect the Board of Education and ultimately the town. It's not saying that every year that if we should have a surplus, that we will continue to add to an account in perpetuity.
And the vote tonight would be to create the account, therefore fund the account, or simply to create the account?
It would be to create and to fund the account based on current law. Again,
Could we also have it so that it would be to create the account and put the guardrails on the account? And does it have to be to fund the account as well? Or is that something that we could wait, as you had suggested earlier, since this just came about, perhaps this is not the year to do it with the town, and then perhaps moving forward?
so the
With
audit is set
guardrails.
to be complete. I'm sorry, Sharon.
Sorry, with guardrails.
Yes. So the audit, we can have this, we can vote, and we can have a discussion with the Board of Finance. Our audit will be completed and reported out by December. So I would suspect that until the audit is complete, the town may have a different opinion on this, that we may still have that time period to really finalize what we want to do with this non-lapsing account, and also with any discussion with the Board of Finance.
Are you suggesting we establish it, we fund it, and we might possibly give it back to them between now and December?
What I am saying is that if we establish, based on current law, if we establish the account and the Board of Finance disagrees in terms of what we have done. So what I'm saying is that we can have, before we can have a discussion with the Board of Finance, I have to have permission to discuss any topic with the Board of Finance. So you need to vote so I can at least have a conversation with the Board of Finance. I can't have the conversation without a formal acknowledgement or authorization from the board to do that.
So no harm, no foul, we establish it,
Yes,
we fund it,
yes.
we have the conversation. They do what they've done in the past and said, no, no, no. And we see we take the temperature at that point.
Yeah, listen, I think the first step is at least to authorize a discussion. If nothing else, we can authorize a discussion and we see how it plays out.
But put it in place.
But put it in place.
I like the idea of authorizing the discussion. I'm not crazy about asking for forgiveness, right? I want it to be a little bit more. They've been really good to us, and working with them, we've had a great relationship with them. And I know we operate differently on that one, but I think that in all fairness, I think that just having a conversation with them, we can still decide what to do later on, but I think having a conversation with them and letting them know that we respect their input, but also letting them know that we actually have some leverage here as well, and that this is something that we would like to do, and basically just letting them know that. If you take the temperature, if it's something that we find that's really important to us, we can still move forward with it, but it would be nice if we worked collaboratively with the other
We
Mm.
don't
board.
have time to do that.
Why don't we have time to do that? It doesn't have to happen until December.
You have to, go ahead.
No. The authorization part of it is easy, but the year ultimately doesn't close, in my opinion, until the audit is complete, which should not happen until
So
this.
funds don't transfer until,
I would not think that anything should be done until the audit is complete, which is not until December.
You got time.
But you said also the non-lapsing account, in the past, I've watched the Board of Finance meetings, I think they begrudgingly given it to us, they haven't necessarily wanted to, but we've had to also say what it's gonna be used for.
During budget.
Okay.
So that normally happens during our budget discussion, is when we say, which is when we get to that point, February, March, where we said, okay, we're gonna mitigate our budget, we have this non-recurrent expenditure, we would like to use funds that we have set aside to do whatever.
so from an accounting point of view,
Yes.
does the money leave our balance sheet?
From an
between
accounting
now and
point of
December?
view, we will close the year, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, from an accounting side of it, we would have closed the year. However, if there is audit adjustment, we can still do audit adjustment in period 13, and that can happen up until December.
So it doesn't go on the town's balance sheet until
I
December?
do not know what the mechanism would be on the town side. But again, this is all up for discussion, Steve and the board.
The next Board of Finance meeting, I'm just looking for clarification, is October 10th, so it's the second week. It's a Thursday.
Yes.
Our meeting October 21st. Which
Correct.
is the third Monday. I'm just sharing this.
If I may amend my recommendation. If the Board of Education wants to have, or wants myself to have this discussion with the town, the board can authorize this discussion with the town, and then I would report back to the board at our meeting in October,
On the 21st.
on the 21st. First at FinCom and then to the full board.
And then in November, they have a meeting on the 14th. We have a meeting on the 18th.
Correct, it's normally the Thursday before we meet.
So I like that suggestion in where you're going to speak to the Board of Finance, but then I think a week later, the Board of Finance should speak to us, and we should come to a consensus. Is that wrong?
Well, the Board of Finance doesn't really ever talk to us.
Well, there's always a first.
Oh,
Pardon me?
You know, this way, there's a consensus, we're all agreeing on it, we hear each other's point of views, and we can make a decision.
The good thing about the meeting in October, because they normally meet before a meeting, is that if we're having a discussion, that will happen on the 10th, then I will have the outcome of that for the next board meeting, and then we can resolve this at our next board meeting. The important piece tonight is to get authorization to at least have a conversation.
Correct, and at the Board of Finance meeting generally, you are there, I am there, and you are there. So there's that, I'm just talking a little bit of procedurally.
Okay, so,
And then reporting out on the 21st.
but we still need a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're still making the sausage. We have to make a motion to add an agenda item.
Yeah.
Which, Jody?
Yes, the first order of business is I need a motion that you would like to add an agenda item, and this is going to require 2/3 of a vote.
Okay.
That's the first.
And the agenda item is to authorize the discussion. Is
That's
that
the
correct?
second.
I just want to make sure I'm.
Yeah.
So can I have a motion to amend the agenda as is, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, as I'm understanding this, just so I have this clear, Mr. Cross, the motion that you want to have is move that the Weston Board of Education authorize the Director of Finance and Operations to have a discussion with the Board of Finance regarding a non-lapsing account for the 23-24 school year.
I think it's important to add as per current statute, or change in statute.
Per change in statute.
For Public Act number 2445.
There-
Section 7.
Okay,
Okay, so move that the Weston Board of Education authorize the Director of Finance and Operations to have a discussion with the Board of Finance regarding a non-lapsing account for the 23-24 school year as per the change in statute?
Yes.
Okay. Can I have a first on that? Would somebody like to
Yeah,
make
so-
that motion?
Right, so moved.
Thank you.
There's
Is
a
there a
second?
second?
Second. Yep. There you go.
All in favor, please go around.
aye. Opposed?
Anybody
None?
opposed?
Great,
Thank you. Motion passes.
okay. Now,
Good discussion, Phil.
Julie, I think?
Yes. Human Resources Update. Director.
I'll be brief. No. So, as I noted earlier, it, of course, has been a very busy hiring season and a very fruitful one. And I just wanted to extend my thanks to, in particular, to our principals and to our assistant directors who have taken on the lion's share of the work. This is really time-consuming work. Screening applications, conducting interviews, reviewing performance tasks, communicating with applicants. And we, thanks to their efforts, we have a really wonderful pool of new staff members. So I couldn't not acknowledge that at this moment. As a result of that hiring, we held over 2 days in the end of August, August 20th and 21st, our new educator induction program, a 2-day program bringing together our new certified staff to help them understand what does it mean to be a team member in Weston, help them understand a little bit about Weston as a community and about our values as a school district. They engaged with one another on some really important topics related to policy and procedure, but also related to just the work of what it means to connect with students and to work in classrooms. So that was a really fun and engaging 2 days, and I'm excited to be able to work with that cohort over the course of this year and to return, I think quarterly, or at least routinely, to what are some of their problems of practice and how can we continue to support them as they transition into Weston. In addition, Dr. Hinkle and I have been working really closely to get our new teacher and leader evaluation and growth plan up and running. During the summer at our administrative retreat, we reviewed that plan with our administrator staff and also debuted the Vector Solutions platform, which is the software platform that we are using to house our evaluation system and also to monitor staff training and professional development. Last Thursday, Tina and I presented to the faculty at the middle school and high school regarding our new plan. As you know, this is a pilot plan for this school year that you approved. It was drafted by our team based on the 2023 guidelines released by the state. And we will be returning this Thursday to present to our elementary faculty to help everyone understand and orient to that new plan. Our Increasing Educator Diversity Plan, which you all approved a draft of that plan last spring, we received news from the state in June that we received a conditional approval for that plan. With that conditional approval came a variety of feedback from the state, so I am working to review that feedback. Our committee will come back together. We're meeting again next week to review the feedback and to talk about some minor revisions that will be necessary, and ultimately we have to submit that revised plan to the state by November 1st. And finally, just a note that a goal within the Human Resources Department this school year is to promote staff wellness. So I've been working with our partners in finance and operations and also with various members of our district wellness committee to plan for activities and resources that will support our staff ongoing physical and emotional wellness. And just this afternoon, the first Human Resources newsletter went out to all staff for the Weston Public Schools announcing that we are bringing back a flu shot clinic this October. So all staff members in the Weston Public Schools will be eligible for a flu shot via a clinic that we're hosting on site in partnership with the Weston Pharmacy. So we're very glad to be partners with the Weston Pharmacy across the way. So that is my update. I welcome your questions.
That's great. Thank you.
I only have one question. It's just because of the public comment we got last spring. Is there any update on the there was concern about, among a bunch of public comments, about kind of an exodus within the arts and performing arts staffing last year? In the spring.
Well, I think that was talked about a little bit in the consent agenda
Right.
and with the principals. I don't know if you have anything to add, Julie.
Yeah, I would just note that, it was a very competitive hiring process, and as the principals noted, those new staff members are really engaging themselves within our school communities. For the most part, they're very experienced staff members, and so that always brings a new dynamic to a team, and I know that our curriculum instructional leader in the performing arts is really excited to be working with a new team, and certainly, I have been in the classrooms of our newest teachers, and the students have demonstrated their enthusiasm. And as Patty noted, they're continuing to want to pursue music in our district. So all of that points to a really solid start with a new team.
Tracy.
Ms. Edwards. Thank you for your patience. It's your turn.
Good evening, everybody. I just have a couple of updates to share from PPS tonight. First, a huge thank you to all of the staff who worked our extended school year program this summer, especially our assistant directors who really take the lead on planning and organizing those supports and services. It was a really positive experience for our students, and it helps to ensure a productive start to the new school year. So very grateful for that work. In addition to our ESY program, we were busy with hiring this summer. I won't belabor that update, but I will just say that we are really fortunate to have the new team members that we have across the district and are already really benefiting from their expertise and enthusiasm and commitment to students. On a separate note, all Weston families should have received a communication from me today with a link to the Panorama Climate Survey. As noted in the letter, the transition to Panorama allows us to conduct a research-based school and community climate survey so that we can gather data about the experiences of students, staff, and the community. This year, we are gathering data in the fall and the spring. Families are asked to complete one survey per child they have in the district by Friday, October 11th. So we have a longer window for this. And we appreciate everyone's feedback as we work to promote a healthy and safe and positive and productive learning environment for our students. Finally, most of our buildings have a new special education PTO liaison this year, so that's a position within each building's PTO, which is exciting. We had some logistics to work through with meeting days and times. I'm meeting with them for the first time together next week. One of our priorities, or one of my priorities, is to hear their feedback about potential meeting topics for the upcoming school year. I think we can anticipate that the first parent meeting will be in October. And just based on attendance from last year, we're going to look at meetings that are occurring during the school day. Those meetings will continue to be recorded, but they will be held virtually. We just have better and more consistent attendance in that format. And it gives us the flexibility to have staff come and present, which I think is an asset to all of us. So that's it for tonight.
I actually wanted to say something, and that is the results that we got back for the SPED population. Great job. You know, I know it's a small population, and so there can be some volatility in it, but at the same time, a win is a win. So good job with that. And I hope that what we talked about during Phil's presentation doesn't come to fruition where we're going to be having some volatility in that area, but I just wanted to say good job, and I appreciate you staying on top of everything. I do have to say you're so organized, and I feel every time that you talk that you are just on top of it, so thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Those results have been a collaborative effort. I think we took a risk, honestly, a couple of years ago, really targeting and highlighting the performance of our subgroup. And I'm proud of the work that's happening there and the fact that we're emphasizing personal progress and student growth. So I appreciate the feedback.
Great. Committee reports? Probably won't be too many. There wasn't a communications committee. CABE, we're transitioning. Cooperative Educational Services, was there anything to report there? Curriculum?
We could not meet, we didn't have a quorum.
Okay. EOC?
Certainly. In preparation for a public notified EOC meeting on October 18th and anticipated special meeting on November 11th, the work of the EOC continued undaunted this summer. A lot of hard work, a lot of shoulder to So the grindstone was done. We, the administration with myself and other participants in different times have been refining the budget and the plan for a whole campus modernization and revitalization. And stay tuned for that preview on October 18th, and then we'll have a meeting on November 11th. We'll go through the nuts and bolts of it with our consultant, and that'll be our final recommendation coming out of the EOC's work last year.
On EOC, can you clarify a couple of things? If there were meetings, we were not notified.
They weren't. There were no meetings.
Okay.
There was work done.
Okay.
The next meeting is October 18th, and it's on the calendar.
Okay. How do we make sure we don't wind up with only a small window of time? Because you mentioned final product will be November, a decision will be made. We're only going to learn about it in October?
Well, a recommendation's been made and voted on, and then the secondary work was the full campus. So that was our task, and we'll report on that task on October 18th and November 11th.
So if I may, there wasn't any meetings over the summer. What happened over the summer was that there was a study by us to look very carefully at all of the reports that have been done, Silver Petrocelli, they're all posted online, and to work with Colliers, who have been helping us, because the concern that was raised by the First Selectwoman was what is the breadth of the work that would be needed across the entire campus, specifically at Hurlbut and the middle school. So in order to be responsive to that, and there's some things that have been recommended to be done in the other two schools. I mean, we like to think of WIS as brand new, but it's almost, 30 years old now? 20, 20, I'm rushing it. So what we're trying to get for you guys in November is to be able to say, this is the amount that would be needed, for example, to also do what's required at Hurlbut from just the point of view of the envelope on the outside, to keep it dry, to keep it HVAC, heating, warm, all of those things. So kind of looking at the overall capital plan and then turning some of Silver Petrocelli's those reports into current dollars and future dollars, so that then there is a better understanding by you guys, as well as the to share it with the town eventually, of this is the scope of work on the campus that needs to be done. And then it ultimately is the town that needs to decide the pieces of how much funding and what we're looking at. But, so that's what's been happening, David. And, yeah, so that's what was happening, and the goal is to report out on this in November, which gives us enough time. It's no decision, but to be able to say, these are the options with regards to the campus needs.
So have we modified at all the middle school plan, or the middle school plan is what was voted on back in, whenever it was May?
I would say that that was what was voted on, yet part of this overall, looking at it all again, is to answer some of those questions. For example, renovate as new versus new, again, to revisit that through the lens of the overall scope, because there's work that has to be done on, in our plans, whether it be through the capital plan or not, that has to be done. There are things that have to be done in Hurlbut. There are things that have to, we all know this, so to try to kind of synthesize all those reports and say, this is what it looks like in today's dollars and future dollars. And this is how it plays out.
So we're going to give,
I hope I'm explaining myself.
we're going to come up with whatever determination we choose to come up with. The Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen kick the can down the road on the middle school by not allowing us to at least start the process to apply for a state grant. So that's postponed anything to do with the middle school for at least 18, maybe 24 months. So there's work that has to be done on the campus in general. The Board of Finance has yet to come up with what they think the optimal bonding capability is for the town. I think they announced a couple days ago they're putting together study groups, and they'll have a number by December. I've told them that we're prepared to give them a number before that. We have consultants that have been working on it, and we'll see what they come up with. I mean, they could come up with a number that isn't anywhere near what we're looking for, and then it'll send us back to the drawing boards again. Because if we have to do things on the middle school piecemeal, you don't get state reimbursements for that. So it's still up in the air as to where everything goes. There we go.
Leverage that we hold to sort of force their hand to accelerate that process, just because.
We could secede, but.
They're gonna have that in December, yeah, they're gonna have that in December, and then we're gonna go right into budget in January, and now we're like
Yep.
fully down the rabbit hole.
Yep.
And we merge with like basically a month or two before.
Well, the only thing is it gets more expensive the more they postpone whatever the decision's going to be.
So the word escalation will be used multiple times in this process, and I think David was alluring to that. As we delay, fees get escalated, and that's going to be reflected in the November 11th meeting.
Phil, we'd like a non-lapsing account of $120 million. Anyway.
And it's a quick, just a thing to float out there. We don't have to decide it tonight at all, but it's floating it. Can you do private fundraising for a public school? Is that a thing for this kind of thing?
Lots of brownies.
I mean, is that even a bucket that people can draw from or not?
I'm sure you can.
Okay. Yeah,
Just put a table out in town center on a Saturday.
I do think it's important, though, that the public gets a sense of the scope of the work in current and future dollars. And that's what we're trying to provide.
Just moving on to finance and operations. Phil pretty much covered everything we talked about in his report. School campus opened. We did ask Mike, the maestro, about any damage from the rains, and there really wasn't anything of note. Seemed to come through that just fine. Policy committee?
So we had our first meeting, and we had a little over 100 pages of new policy that we needed to go through. So just in the interest of time, I'll go through the first 50, and then Mike, if you would go up to the, cool. Yeah, it's in our folders, and we kind of went through part of it. We're gonna, Jessica came and explained to us even more today, and it's gonna be, is this first read now or not? No? All right, so we'll be putting it for the first read, all the different policy changes. In the October meeting, so be prepared for a lot of reading. You all have hard copies here. I'd start doing your reading now so that you're prepared for the October meeting. That's it. Oh, and then Weston Education Foundation. They had their first meeting, and they've got some new board members. If anybody knows anybody else who wants to join their board, it's wonderful. They're trying to really incorporate a lot of young families into the Weston Education Foundation and also get their name out there so people understand what the Weston Education Foundation is, what they do. It's a wonderful organization. They're such nice people, and they really do just want to help the school systems and the kids as much as they possibly can. So it was a lovely first meeting, and they now have a new board member. So that was that.
Next meeting's on the 21st. Is there anything else we should talk about? Kind of a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Oh, I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.